A lone figure watches heroes in the distance, whispering in utter awe. Another party of adventurers stares, unable to believe what they just witnessed. In a tavern, a patron shouts that a solo party actually did it. He describes their foe, a monster of the highest, most terrifying difficulty. 6 heroes stand victorious over a massive, slain dragon, their legend born. The title appears over the scene, celebrating the fastest raid boss kill ever. A cheerful announcer with a microphone asks the triumphant heroes for an interview. From afar, a crowd watches as the heroes are swarmed by the media. An adventurer marvels at the party's strength, nudging his quiet companion. The nondescript man with glasses can only offer a nervous, sweaty agreement. The first adventurer shoves him, annoyed he wasn't watching the spectacle properly. Jostled by the crowd, the man apologizes, realizing he's in the way. Overwhelmed and unseen, he turns and shuffles away from the celebration. He glances back with a look of resignation before disappearing into obscurity. The announcer asks the hero how they found the boss's secret weakness. The hero explains that their member Tenma painstakingly discovered it for them. The party looks around in confusion. Their crucial strategist is nowhere to be found. Another member apologizes for Tenma's absence and offers to answer instead. Far from the stage, the hero's voice calls out, finding Tenma at last. The man from the crowd, Tenma, is on a video call with the hero. The hero shows off elixirs they found, suggesting a celebratory online toast. From his messy room, Tenma raises a can to his laptop. Cheers! His reality is one of cheap alcohol, trash, and leftover convenience food. Chat messages praise his research and note how others foolishly underestimate him. Tenma humbly replies that their victory was thanks to everyone's combined strength. A party member is glad Tenma never pressures them to quit their jobs. Another friend thanks him for the advice that helped them find a job. They wonder if Tenma must be some kind of elite professional in real life. His fingers hover over the keyboard, ready to type the mundane truth. He admits he's just a part-timer at an exploitative, black company. A friend joyfully announces he got a job, all thanks to Tenma's advice. Tenma offers his sincere congratulations, a warm, genuine smile on his face. He tells his friend to work hard enough for the both of them. He opens a can, musing that the game world is fair where effort pays off. He reflects on how his generation was hit hard by an employment recession. The can of cheap, strong alcohol is a stark symbol of his reality. He remembers how the game felt like an impossible challenge when he started. As he opens the can, a strange energy seems to spark from it. The world distorts violently as he wonders if it's an earthquake. He realizes it's not the world shaking. He has collapsed onto the floor. He lies motionless, his eyes wide with shock, the can rolling away. In-game, his friends notice he isn't responding and begin to worry. His consciousness fades as his party members wonder if he just fell asleep. He awakens on the floor of an endless, sterile white corridor. He looks around, utterly bewildered, questioning if this is a hospital. A sudden, sharp clatter from down the hall snaps him to attention. He sees a woman at a desk and wonders who this foreigner is. The blonde woman with glasses turns her head, having noticed his presence. She states simply that he has arrived, as he pushes himself up. She stands from her desk and begins to walk toward him. She confirms his name and informs him that he died during his game. He accepts this impossible news with a surprising, quiet calmness. The administrator notes his lack of shock, finding his reaction unusual. She observes him with a neutral, yet professional expression. She explains that another world has requested his reincarnation. He expresses doubt that his current physical condition is suitable for this. As he speaks, loud alarms begin to blare from a nearby console. She is momentarily startled by the sudden, cacophonous warning sounds. Flustered, she rushes to explain the de-aging process and training period. Tenma's inner gamer awakens at the exciting prospect of a tutorial. He immediately asks if he can acquire skills and magic during the training. He continues, asking specifically about appraisal and his beloved item box. Overwhelmed, she screams at him to stop talking, admitting she can't multitask. She frets aloud, realizing that she is quickly running out of time. She explains this place is less a destination and more a temp agency. Watching her struggle, Tenma thinks to himself that she must be overworked. She pulls herself together and announces it is time for his ability assessment. She explains a system of aptitudes plus corrections and minus corrections. She confirms that if he takes no bonuses, he will receive no penalties. Tenma wants to take his time to carefully consider the strategic trade-offs. The alarms intensify and she panics, thinking she's seen as incompetent. He feels a sense of sympathy, seeing a reflection of his own struggles. He decides to make things easier for his flustered guide. To her complete shock, he tells her he will take no corrections. He explains it's easier to test things out with the default normal setting. Composed again, she explains the training ends at level 10 or 3 months. He asks what she means by sense time as the alarms continue to blare. She frantically holds up a hand, telling him to wait just a moment. But a massive screen flashes to life, declaring the reincarnation start. She clasps her hands in horror, realizing she has made another terrible mistake. As his consciousness fades, her desperate apology is the last thing he hears. His vision dissolves into a grainy, static-filled blackness. A single quiet sound marks his slow return to consciousness. He jolts awake with a gasp, finding himself seated at a desk. A screen welcomes him to the training facility for the reincarnated. He reaches out a hesitant hand, touching the desk in his new reality. He looks down at his hands, now covered in fingerless adventurer's gloves. He touches his face, feeling the strange newness of his youthful body. Standing up, he marvels at how impossibly light and agile he feels. He begins to explore his new home, finding a journal on a desk. He discovers a fully equipped workshop, complete with a forge and anvil. He walks down a clean, well-lit hallway, taking in his surroundings. He finds a library filled with books, dominated by a spiral staircase. He enters the bedroom, finding a neatly made bed and a mirror. He stops dead in his tracks, catching his reflection in the mirror. His eyes widen in utter shock and disbelief at the image before him. He touches his own cheek, exclaiming that he has become young again. He stands outside, looking up at the large tutorial house provided for him. He sits on his new bed, opening a book to begin his research. With a pen and journal in hand, the strategist begins to plan. Tenma sits down, resolving to document everything in this new world. A map shows his new home, a 100-kilometer island with a central dungeon. He looks out his window, contemplating the monsters that now roam his world. Seeing birds, he wonders if they are edible monsters he could hunt. For now, he enjoys a delicious bowl of beef, a taste of civilization. He discovers a monitor that allows him to order food with a daily allowance. He decides to stick to the convenient, provided meals for the time being. Opening a drawer, he's surprised to find it stocked with various supplies. A note informs him that this is just a single day's worth of provisions. He is shocked to find even a powerful, top-grade elixir among the items. The elixir reminds him of the triumphant toast his old party once shared. A sudden, thrilling realization dawns on him, his eyes widening in hope. He wonders if his old game status might be reflected in this new reality. He eagerly brings up his status screen, tapping the monitor with anticipation. His eyes widen in sheer disbelief at what the screen displays before him. His bonus skills, item box and appraisal, have successfully carried over. He snaps open his notebook, ready to begin testing his exciting new theory. With a confident grin, he declares that the verification process has begun. Meanwhile, Anna frets about being summoned to a board meeting at the agency. She nervously wonders if one of her reincarnators has caused another problem. Her imposing boss asks if she has any idea why she has been summoned. She mentally reviews her recent failures, trying to guess which one it is. Her boss reveals that her last 3 reincarnators have all abandoned their duties. Overwhelmed, Anna drops to her knees as papers scatter across the floor. The director addresses her coolly by name, his voice devoid of any warmth. He states there must be a common cause for so many consecutive failures. She accepts full responsibility, assuming she is about to be fired. She already begins to worry about finding a new job starting tomorrow. She thinks that the company will surely have to hold someone accountable. Her boss asks if she can even explain the true meaning of responsibility. She stammers that it must be the duty of the person in charge. He calls her a failure who doesn't understand the concept he's asking about. Changing the subject, he asks for an update on the current reincarnator. A graphic shows the terrifying time dilation. 1 hour equals 1 full year. The text emphasizes the immense passage of time Tenma is experiencing. Back on the island, Tenma confirms he has gathered all the provided potions. He moves the potions to his item box so they won't disappear overnight. He knows that anything left in the temporary storage will vanish with the reset. He enters a vast indoor training hall, recognizing it from old videos. He practices his grip, tossing a baseball to test his new body's dexterity. His first throw falls short, landing with a soft thud before the target. He shrugs it off, figuring it's a decent enough start for his first day. He reviews his perfectly balanced level 1 stats, formulating a new plan. He wonders if it's possible to raise his base stats before he levels up. A diagram illustrates his core question: are stat gains fixed or proportional? The main problem, he realizes, is that he doesn't know how to do it. He recalls a method from his old game, depleting MP to increase the maximum. With a determined expression, he decides it is certainly worth a try. He takes a confident step forward into the center of the training arena. He closes his eyes and takes a deep breath, focusing all of his energy. His eyes snap open, filled with an intense, unwavering concentration. He casts his first spell, Time, making a digital clock appear on his hand. He meticulously notes the spell's effect and its 5-point MP cost. Satisfied with the first result, he decides to try the next spell. He casts Water, creating a swirling vortex of liquid between his hands. Next, he summons a small, flickering flame with the Ignition spell. A blast of wind magic shoots from his hand as his MP continues to drop. He stomps his foot, casting Dig and shattering the ground beneath him. The sudden repeated exertion causes him to stumble, catching him off guard. His vision blurs and swims, the world around him losing all focus. He shakes it off and regains his composure, casting a simple light spell. A wave of nausea suddenly hits him, and he staggers, clutching his stomach. He collapses to his knees, unable to stand as his MP drains away. He realizes with a grimace that MP depletion has a real, physical toll. The feeling reminds him of the exhaustion from overwork in his past life. With his last ounce of strength, he forces himself to cast a sleep spell. His mana pool finally hits 0, the experiment reaching its painful climax. He falls face first onto the hard floor, completely and utterly drained. After a moment of unconsciousness, his eyes flutter open, his will returning. He jolts upright with a gasp, his first panicked thought being about his MP. He sees his MP has recovered to 30, but his maximum is still unchanged. A clock on the wall shows he was out for 30 minutes, recovering 1 MP per minute. He calculates that he still has another 20 minutes until a full recovery. He steps outside for a break, a smile on his face as he sees the ocean. He sits on a large rock, taking a moment to enjoy the peaceful seaside. He pulls out 2 convenience store rice balls from his item box for a snack. He carefully unwraps one of the simple meals, a familiar taste of home. He eats by the sea, the gentle wind blowing through his dark hair. He thinks to himself that being reincarnated here might actually be a good thing. He shakes off the pleasant thought, shouting that he must resume his training. A montage begins, showing him collapsing after completely depleting his MP. He then runs outside, waiting for his MP to recover before the next cycle. He frantically studies and writes, pushing his mind to drain his mana again. He rests in the library, patiently waiting for his MP to recover once more. A blank panel serves as a transition, showing the passage of time. He stumbles out of a room, noting the exhaustion feels less intense this time. He quickly decides to check his status to see if there is any change. His eyes widen in shock. His maximum MP has increased from 50 to 51. He stomps his foot triumphantly, declaring the first stage of his plan a success. He throws himself to the floor, overcome with a wave of pure, unadulterated joy. Lying on his back, he lets out a quiet, satisfied, and exhausted laugh. He grabs his face, filled with the absolute certainty that he can do this. As night falls on his first day, he vows to conquer the next 3 months. Back at the agency, Director Hagen closes a door, his expression unreadable. Anna is suddenly struck by a thought, a nagging feeling she forgot something. The director asks if she set a timer for the training, but she's not sure. He notes her enthusiasm, but she has completely missed his serious point. Utterly exhausted from her shift, she fumbles and drops her energy drink. She desperately chugs the Monster Bowl to stay awake and focused. The sugary drink spills down her chin as she tries to recover her composure. Anna sighs, feeling the caffeine and sugar from her energy drink kick in. She wonders why Director Hagen is so involved with her reincarnator's troubles. Nearby, Hagen reviews documents, his expression stern and unreadable. She worries he is just using her for some terrible, self-serving purpose. Suddenly, she is startled to see him smoking on a nearby balcony. He beckons her over with a casual wave of his hand. She stands silently by the vending machine, unsure of what to do. Approaching her, Hagen kindly offers to get her something light to eat. She accepts his unexpected offer with a quiet word of thanks. As they walk together, she hesitantly addresses him as Director Hagen. She asks him to explain what he meant by the true meaning of responsibility. He states that true responsibility is merely the shadow of power. He recalls how she questioned her first hero candidate's strong sense of justice. She remembers being pressed for a reason, only repeating the same vague points. Hagen dismisses her past reasoning as complete and utter nonsense. He asks if she has the authority to alter schedules or order more tests. He criticizes his predecessor for creating busy work with trivial reports. Responsibility cannot exist without authority, he declares, a truth many ignore. He tells her to relax, as he will take full responsibility for this case. She vows to herself to consider how to handle such a case next time. Hagen nods in approval, a slight knowing smile on his lips. On a vast balcony, he tells her she's more capable than others think. He intends to use the upcoming interrogation to teach her the new system. He will handle the complex parts, he says, leaving Anna surprised. He then asks for an update on the reincarnator currently in training. She explains the time dilation. One of their hours is 1 month there. She pauses, a hint of confusion on her face as she checks her notes. Hagen asks to see the interview records for Tenma. He begins to read through the documents with a thoughtful expression. His eye widens in astonishment as he reads something in Tenma's file. On his island, Tenma puts his pen down, satisfied with his day's notes. He muses that his month-long training life will soon be over. Looking at his meal, he is reminded of his daily allowance. He must use up his food budget, as he is still only level 1. Reaching level 10 would end his training, so he prioritizes his skills. He orders a side of potato salad to complete his meal for the day. This combination, he thinks, is the best use of his 3,000 yen allowance. He has devised various meal plans to avoid getting bored with the food. Finishing his meal, he gives thanks for the food he has received. Lying in bed, he recalls how all provided items reset every single day. He yawns, realizing he hasn't used the powerful elixirs even once. He drifts off to sleep, feeling content and tired from his training. He jolts awake in a sudden panic, realizing his terrible mistake. Hagen's voice continues, explaining the psychological toll of the system. Anna listens intently, understanding the pressure the reincarnators face. Hagen says he reviewed Tenma's logs, noting his good rapport with Anna. Anna nibbles on a snack, thinking about her impression of Tenma. She agrees he was reliable, but her subordinates would call him old-fashioned. Hagen takes a drag from his cigarette, a thoughtful look on his face. He explains the training system's core problem, the nightly reset. He describes the harsh environment of solitude and constant erasure. Anna realizes most reincarnators level up quickly just to escape. She muses that simply having a conversation partner wouldn't be enough. Hagen checks his watch, noting that the time is near. It's time for the second half, he declares, turning to leave. He reassures her that he will take full responsibility for what comes next. As Anna follows, she feels she's forgetting something important about the case. On the island, the 29th day of the first month begins at 8:12 a.m. Tenma cheerfully greets the dolphin mascot on his monitor. He steps outside the tutorial house into the bright morning air. His daily routine begins with a series of familiar morning stretches. He pauses his routine to look at a small bird in a nearby tree. With a bright, cheerful smile, he wishes the bird a good morning. He then greets the flowers, his simple routine a source of comfort. He spots a perfectly shaped stone on the ground and picks it up. He thinks it's a good stone, noting that his actions have a purpose. He decides to methodically collect 200 stones for his training. He sets up his target, a large flat-faced rock in the field. He has carved a numbered grid onto the rock for target practice. He focuses, holding a stone, preparing for his first throw. He winds up and throws with all his might, narrowly missing. He catches another stone, adjusting his aim for the next throw. His 10th and 50th throws successfully strike the target grid. He pants, calling out his 150th successful hit. With sweat on his brow, he prepares for his final 200th throw. His last throw smashes into the rock, completing his task. The scene transitions from his physical to his magical training. Next, he moves to a large rock by the water for meditation. He sits cross-legged, focusing his mind and gathering his mana. He tries to move his surroundings with his will alone. The pulse of his energy startles 2 nearby birds into flight. Exhausted, he collapses, knowing mana control is a vital skill. This tedious groundwork is more important than flashy magic, he thinks. For a break, he enjoys a simple lunch of a sandwich and coffee. Sitting by the sea, a feather drifts down in front of him. He catches the feather, examining its unique black and white pattern. He identifies it as a horo bird feather using his encyclopedia. As the sun sets, he continues his solitary exploration of the island. He bends down to examine the ground, a flock of birds overhead. He notes that the stones are always in the same location and size. The predictable nature of the daily reset gives him an idea. He notices a stick and a rock that looks similar to something else. Night falls, the stars shining brightly over the tutorial house. Inside, he prepares his knife and some small pieces of wood. He carefully begins to carve, a sketch of his old party nearby. The drawing shows the 6 reckless heroes, his former comrades. The wood shavings fall to the table as he works late into the night. More wood shavings litter the floor around his cluttered desk. Later, he squeezes toothpaste onto his toothbrush before bed. While brushing, he mumbles that tomorrow will mark 1 full month here. Tema silently listens to the small, cheerful dolphin on his monitor. He had mastered a grueling cycle of depleting his energy with potions. After finally acquiring the concentration skill, his training efficiency soared. While brushing his teeth, he laments that only 60 days remain. His toothbrush rests in a simple glass, a mundane part of his routine. He sits on his bed, grateful for this time to test everything. He asks his small, wooden companion if it agrees with his thoughts. He gently pats the cat-like figure, wishing his temporary friend Doyle good night. The next morning, Tenma jolts awake with a look of sheer panic. He frantically tears his bed apart, crying that the reset took his doll. He stares off, dejected by the loss of his small, handcrafted friend. Outside, he kicks at the dirt in a moment of helpless frustration. This place, he sighs, is just a mundane and lonely kind of hell. He gazes at the clouds, wistfully wishing he had someone to talk to. In another reality, a boardroom of anthropomorphic executives listens intently. Anna concludes her presentation, outlining the necessary system improvements. A senior executive praises her, calling it a clear and excellent report. With a soft thud, the executives begin to rise as the meeting ends. Higgin notes that overlooking the reincarnator's issues was the true problem. He muses that no one had realized such issues could arise until her report. He sarcastically adds that surely the management couldn't be so sloppy. He wipes sweat from his brow as Anna stands by, looking concerned. Anna feels the immense pressure of her situation and recent failures. She wonders to herself why these powerful people enjoy meetings so much. A close-up shows a watch on the wrist of one of the executives. Anna idly wonders what kind of delicious food or drinks they enjoy. As night falls over a glittering city, her stomach growls with hunger. The scene fades to black. On the training island, the lonely house sits under a vast, starry sky. A can of celebratory chuhai sits beside a half-eaten meal. The 90th day arrives and Tenma cheers that his training life is over. He sips his drink, reflecting on 3 months of skill grinding. A pile of delicious, freshly roasted horo-horo bird meat is shown. He savors the meat, thankful he mastered his throwing skill to hunt. He looks at his meal, a single thought entering his mind. But he decides to savor this last taste of familiar modern Japanese food. The clock shows 23:54. He knows his time here is almost up. He stands in the middle of the room, counting down the final seconds. The number 3 flashes as the clock ticks over to 23:59. The number 2 appears over the silent image of the dolphin monitor. Tenma's heart pounds as the final momentous second arrives. The moment passes, he stands under the light, utterly confused. A bead of sweat drips down his face as he asks, "I wasn't reincarnated?" He walks toward his desk, seeking an answer from the monitor. He leans over the desk, staring at the blank, unresponsive screen. The clock shows 00:01 on the 91st day. 3 months have definitely passed. He yawns, deciding that the transfer will probably happen after he sleeps. Empty cans litter the floor, remnants of his premature celebration. He had deliberately prioritized his stats, choosing to make the most of his environment. This isolated place was the most efficient training ground he could imagine. He had felt a deep and quiet satisfaction with his methodical progress. Feeling both accomplished and exhausted, he had drifted off to sleep. The world fades to black. Darkness gives way to a new day. He wakes up in bed, the morning light streaming through the window. He blinks slowly, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. He jolts upright, yelling that he wasn't reincarnated, and tries to remember why. He looks outside, his expression troubled, as a butterfly flits past. A sudden dawning realization begins to form in his mind. He remembers Anna's words. It was 3 months or surpassing level 10. The truth hits him, and a slow bead of sweat rolls down his cheek. His face explodes with pure joy. He can test things for as long as he wants. He excitedly considers whether he should master alchemy or magic next. A time card appears. It is now the 181st day of his training. Water pools around his feet as he steps out onto the tiled floor. He stretches, feeling warm and refreshed after a long, relaxing bath. There's nothing better than a hot bath, he thinks. It's the best. He contentedly dries his hair with a fluffy white towel. Another 3 months have passed with still no sign of reincarnation. He sits at his desk, pointing at the monitor as he studies. His only worry, the supply of food, has continued without fail. But as he scrolls the menu, he suddenly stops, noticing something is wrong. His eye widens, a reflection of a strange, tiny creature within it. He sees the dolphin on his monitor is huge and asks if it got bigger. The giant dolphin confirms this, stating use beyond 90 days was unexpected. Tenma is shocked that this is somehow part of the system's specifications. He tries to scrub the persistent image off the monitor screen. He stares in disbelief as the giant dolphin remains on the screen. He wipes frantically, but the dolphin tells him it cannot be erased. He looks up at the house, calling out to his monitor. "Shachi-kun?" He asks why the training hasn't ended. The dolphin tells him to call it Gale. Gale calmly explains that the training period should have ended months ago. It tells a panicking Tenma to calm down, though the reason is unknown. Tenma points out that Gale has suddenly become quite talkative. Gale lets out a small, almost smug chuckle in response. It explains its time restrictions expired, but its advanced functions were sealed. Tenma walks down a hallway, a strange feeling washing over him. He touches a door, wondering who on earth created this strange navigator. He looks at his own hand in shock, feeling something is wrong. He presses his palms against the door, exclaiming that it feels completely flat. He asks Gale if this bizarre phenomenon is a system bug. Gale confirms that it is a bug, but one within expected parameters. It then suggests a way to exploit the daily reset, destroy the bedroom. Tenma stands in the hallway of his house, holding a simple sword. Through constant practice, he has learned how to imbue his weapon with magic. He knows this will vastly improve its durability and cutting power. He focuses his energy, his eyes narrowed in concentration. The first powerful blow cracks the plaster wall. A second, even stronger strike shatters the wall's surface. The third blow sends a powerful tremor through the entire house. Tenma stands in a gaping hole, revealing a wall of glitching digital errors. He panics, frantically trying to close the cascading system warnings that beep around him. With a weary sigh, he wipes his brow, having momentarily stabilized the bizarre glitch. A bead of sweat rolls down his face as he looks on with nervous apprehension. He notes with relief that the interior of his room, at least, seems to be fine. He managed to deal with it this time, but he worries about what future bugs might bring. He fears that one day the entire room might simply vanish without a trace. Studying a book, he thinks that a new dimension magic might be the perfect countermeasure. Looking at the tutorial house, he resolves to move his most important possessions to safety. The void behind the wall is a dark, unstable space of corrupted digital information. A monstrous creature made of twisted code shrieks as it materializes from the system's decay. Back at the agency, Anna returns to her office. Unaware, a tiny glitch monster scurries by. She places her coffee on her desk, finally ready to get back to her work. Her eyes widen in absolute horror as she sees the alerts flashing on her monitor. The screen screams that the training facility is severely damaged and reincarnation should have already happened. She cries out in panic, realizing the failure to reincarnate is her own critical setting mistake. A new ominous option appears on screen: forced reincarnation. She doesn't know what to do. The terrifying words are reflected in her glasses as she stares, frozen in disbelief. In his office, Director Hagen hears the familiar chime of an incoming call on his monitor. Anna's frantic, distraught face appears on the screen as the video call connects. Hagen calmly sips from a cat-faced mug, stating that he understands the situation. Anna explains the time limit alarm wasn't set, which is why the damage alert finally tipped them off. Over the call, Director Hagen addresses his subordinate, Anna, by name. He thanks her for her honesty, a gentle response that brings tears to her eyes. She is completely taken aback by his calm demeanor, only able to utter a confused, "Huh?" Hagen states their first priority is to bring Tenma back and apologize for their negligence. He assures her he will report to management himself, dismissing the need for client permission. He gravely considers the immense psychological toll of 15 years of total solitude. On the 187th day, the sun sets over the lonely tutorial house on the island. A thought bubble screams that he has finally reached his limit and cannot endure this anymore. He complains to the dolphin monitor, Gale, about being trapped with the same unchanging screen for half a year. He gently reaches out to his only companion, addressing the AI by name. He says they're trapped together, but Gale clarifies that only Tenma has the ability to leave. Tenma concedes the point with a sigh as he thoughtfully washes his hands. He reflects on his ambitious initial plan to completely max out every single skill proficiency. He has decided to prioritize leveling up tomorrow, which will finally free Gale from this place. With a cheerful smile, he asks his silent companion what it thinks of his selfless decision. Gale weeps, calling Tenma a good person, and reveals his level is now too high to reincarnate anyway. A stark black panel states that at this moment, he used his ingenuity. Gale's voice echoes through the darkness, telling Tenma to open his eyes. Tenma is stunned to see a perfect, sunlit replica of his favorite forest grove inside a room. He wonders if it's a dream, but Gale explains it duplicated his usual training spot. A diagram explains the dimension area magic, capable of replicating terrain in a subspace. Gale offers to copy any place on the island, curious about what Tenma's stats have become. Tenma admits he's been so focused on leveling that he hasn't checked the fine details. Gale is utterly shocked by his stats, exclaiming it's never seen a human with such high proficiency. A flashback shows Tenma's grueling training regimen in the world that resets itself daily. He spent countless lonely hours poring over books, absorbing all the knowledge he could. He would often sit on a rock, staring out at the vast, unchanging, artificial landscape. He even learned to cook and bake, a small comfort to maintain his sanity. The scene jumps forward, showing the tutorial house 12 years after his death. He gently arranges small, hand-carved wooden figures of his old party members on a shelf. He explains this room of space is where he keeps precious items, safe from bugs and resets. He muses that the bug was a blessing, as this pocket dimension is free from rain. He laughs that the original operator who designed this place must have been quite the character. Gale nervously reveals a stunning truth. The creator of this world is the goddess Terra. Tenma is shocked by the revelation, exclaiming that a goddess is behind all of this. He realizes this must mean there are hidden conditions attached to his reincarnation. He speculates that a secret condition could be defeating the strongest monster in the dungeon. His eyes sparkle with a newfound sense of purpose and excitement at the challenge. He declares he'll test the theory immediately, since he has all the time in the world. He stands alone at the dark, foreboding entrance to the island's central dungeon. With a torch in hand, he bravely fights his way through hordes of snarling goblins. He reflects on the difficulty of going solo, wistfully thinking of his old party. He explores a vast, glittering cavern filled with crystals, his lantern held high. He runs for his life from a massive, club-wielding orc in a narrow passage. He eagerly dives headfirst into a classic wooden treasure chest he discovered. He meticulously maps out the dungeon's winding layout on a large scroll. 3 long years pass from the day he first began his dungeon conquest. Now a cloaked warrior with a staff, he stands before the final, massive boss door. The screen goes black, signaling a transition into the final chamber. He confronts the dungeon's final boss, an ancient dragon, after 14 hours of battle. Leaning on his sword, he tells himself he cannot give up on this fight. He knows that soloing this beast is an impossible game, a fool's errand. He grits his teeth, knowing that all his effort will be for nothing if he dies now. The death penalty would erase 15 years of hard work, a thought he cannot bear. As he prepares to use a potion, a sudden, startling thought crosses his mind. He checks his item box and finds a single, unfamiliar elixir he doesn't recognize. The dragon speaks, its words eerily familiar, asking if he has grown weaker over time. He clutches the strange item, his eyes wide with a dawning realization. This must be the key. He changes his strategy, running towards the dragon, which looks on with a question mark of confusion. He takes a powerful throwing stance, preparing to launch his unconventional weapon. The dragon scoffs at his pathetic resistance, preparing to deliver the finishing blow. He hurls a simple stone, which zips through the air with surprising speed. The dragon is completely baffled as the tiny projectile whizzes harmlessly past its head. "Now!" Tenma shouts, seizing the momentary opening his strange tactic created. The dragon looks down in shock as the tip of Tenma's sword nears its vital spot. With a sickening crunch, the blade plunges deep into the dragon's skull. The great beast can only manage a final, disbelieving whisper. Impossible. Its colossal body goes limp, crashing lifelessly to the cavern floor. Tenma lets out a raw, guttural scream of absolute, hard-won victory. He pants heavily, the immense strain of the marathon battle finally catching up to him. Utterly spent, he collapses face first onto the rubble-strewn ground. Lying on the floor, he weakly activates a glowing recovery item to mend his wounds. He sighs in relief, admitting to himself that today's fight was genuinely dangerous. He jots down the time in his log, 15 hours and 57 minutes, a new personal record. Standing over his vanquished foe, he demands that this time he finally be reincarnated. His demand hangs in the air as the scene begins to shift. At the agency, a hand traces the ornate cover of a book as someone murmurs their understanding. A pig-faced executive tells Hagen he made time for him since he insisted it was urgent. In his sterile office, Managing Director Hayes questions the fuss over a training error. Director Hagen respectfully addresses his superior, preparing to explain the situation's gravity. He warns that proceeding with the reincarnation could lead to a far worse incident. An impatient Hayes waves him off, telling him he understands and to get on with it. Hayes scoffs, declaring he has no time for such idealistic, goody-two-shoes notions. Hagen notes dryly that incompetent subordinates make work harder for everyone involved. Hayes agrees, idly petting a bizarre skeletal creature as Hagen watches impassively. He asks if the client is even aware of their mistake, crumpling a memo dismissively. With his pet yelping, he decides to simply push the flawed reincarnation through anyway. Hagen begins to counter, believing a more honorable business approach is necessary. He argues that building trust with clients is the key to long-term success. Hayes lets out a massive, bored yawn, completely uninterested in the lecture. Hagen knew that such a serious argument would be utterly lost on this man. With a cruel grin, Hayes reveals he already ordered a forced reincarnation 35 minutes ago. Hagen feigns admiration, complimenting the managing director on his swift judgment. Hayes is pleased, believing he has efficiently cleaned up his subordinate's mess. He sees it simply as the tedious chore of dealing with an incompetence mistake. Far away, the subject of their debate, Tenma, is suddenly pulled from the system. He awakens in a field, shouting in confusion about his new and unfamiliar location. He scrambles to his feet, the feeling of solid, damp earth a complete shock. He stands in the tall grass under a downpour, utterly bewildered by his surroundings. He holds out a gloved hand, feeling the strange, cool sensation of falling rain. He knows this is more than just water. Something is fundamentally different now. A crucial fact surfaces in his mind: it never once rained in the training space. His eyes widen in shock as the monumental truth of his situation dawns on him. He stares at the rain-soaked wildflowers, tangible proof that this world is real. The reality of it all is overwhelming, his expression a mixture of shock and awe. The sight of a distant, misty mountain confirms this is no longer a simulation. He looks up at the gray sky, finally understanding what this all must mean. Overcome with 15 years of pent-up emotion, he cries out that he's been reincarnated. The cathartic release is a storm of tears, washing away years of solitude. He finds shelter from the downpour beneath the heavy boughs of a large tree. His practical nature reasserts itself as he wrings the water from his soaked shirt. Now shirtless, he hangs his dripping pants on a branch to dry in the humid air. He sees his equipment as all brand new, his possessions reduced to the essentials. Checking his status, he sighs with resignation upon finding his item box is empty. But his eyes widen in shock at his stats, which are now astronomically high. He lets out a laugh of pure joy, astounded by the incredible power he possesses. As he gets dressed, a sudden wave of sadness washes over his celebration. He hopes his old friend Gale was freed and is now living happily somewhere. A sudden rustling sound from the tall, wet grass snaps him to attention. He turns toward the noise, his expression shifting from joy to startled caution. He moves stealthily through the grass, his hand on his knife, ready for anything. Pushing aside the final blades of grass, his face contorts in pure shock. A small, fox-eared girl with a fluffy tail has collapsed in the muddy grass. His first thought is to help the child with the adorable tail and animal ears. He kneels beside her, trying to process this sudden and bizarre turn of events. His brow furrows in deep concern as he carefully assesses her condition. He gently turns her over, trying to see if she is injured or simply exhausted. He then discovers the horrific reason for her collapse: a cruel bear trap on her ankle. Alone in the desolate clearing, he prepares to render aid to the trapped child. He resolves to first use his water magic to gently wash the nasty wound. He notes how thin she is and worries about applying the right amount of magic. He wishes he had an elixir, which would have made healing her so much easier. Sometime later, the rain has finally stopped and the sky begins to clear. Tenma wipes the sweat from his brow, exhausted but relieved from his work. The girl begins to stir, her eyes fluttering open as she slowly wakes up. She sits up, carefully touching her newly bandaged leg with a quiet sound. She looks around cautiously, her head swiveling to take in the unfamiliar scene. Tenma awkwardly introduces himself as Oji-san and asks for her name and home. She bluntly states she has forgotten her name and home, deeply wary of him. He realizes his social skills have atrophied after speaking only to Gale for years. He feels they can communicate, but senses their hearts are not yet connecting. He finds himself wondering what his AI companion Gale would advise him to do. He studies her simple, handmade clothes and guesses she's from a pioneer village. He figures her parents must have taught her not to trust strangers so easily. He feels a profound respect for her caution and is touched by her strength. He notices that she seems to be leading him on a meandering, aimless path. He calls out to her, and her pointed fox ears twitch in his direction. He cheerfully says he has an errand to run and wishes her a safe journey. He turns and runs into the forest, leaving the girl to watch him depart. High above the forest floor, he begins his own, more direct investigation. Perched in a tree, he consults the magical map generated by his skills. He confirms that the presence he detected earlier has merged with another group. His advanced skills create a map displaying all life within a 5-kilometer radius. He correctly deduces that the group must be her family and they're going home. His map clearly shows the icons of the girl and her family moving together. In the forest below, the small girl is joyfully reunited with her older sister. The older sister carries the little one on her back as they head home. Tenma watches them from his perch, a thoughtful expression on his young face. He tracks their progress, noting the winding, indirect route they are taking. The icons continue their roundabout journey, confirming their deep-seated caution. He realizes they are still taking the long way home, wary of being followed. He understands their clever strategy to protect their village from potential threats. Looking over the vast landscape, he accepts that this is reality, not a game. He worries that he has already made a terrible first impression on these people. He recalls how he always fumbled his first encounters in his old online games. He muses that in this new world, first impressions are 90% of everything. In the distance, he spots the faint outline of a village in the wilderness. He begins his approach, moving with practiced stealth through the dense undergrowth. He pulls his hood over his head, deciding a mysterious approach is his best bet. He looks up at a small birdhouse, his expression serious and deeply determined. He knows the monsters here are no threat, but the balance is still delicate. More importantly, he must be extremely careful not to frighten the local villagers. He quickly hides in the tall grass as a group of villagers passes nearby. He overhears them discussing their hardships since they last had contact with outsiders. He watches them approach a wooden palisade, knowing pioneers are wary of strangers. He resolves that if he can just manage to make a good first impression, it will be okay. He finds a large, impressive-looking stone to use as part of his plan. He begins to build a small shelter, a way to showcase his skills and weight. High in a lonely tree, a small rustic house stands against the forest canopy. A sharp knife shaves a delicate curl of wood from a small branch. Tenma carefully marks a tally on a wooden wall, counting his days. He hurls a sharpened stone with practiced, deadly accuracy towards a target. Wiping sweat from his brow, he watches 2 birds circle in the summer sky. With a successful hunt in hand, he tosses a small rock, feeling content. He forges for food, searching carefully among the roots of an ancient tree. Seated by a crackling fire, he savors the simple meal he has prepared. In a clearing, he studies a complex map and notes etched into the dirt. In the quiet evenings, he carves a small, cat-like figure from a block of wood. He glances over at his only companion, a large, moss-covered rock. Beaming, he proudly presents his finished carving to the stoic, stony face. Now cloaked and hidden, he watches the edge of the forest from the shadows. Peeking from behind a tree, he focuses his attention on the nearby village. A fox-eared girl, Misha, nimbly balances atop the high wooden palisade. She leaps down from the wall, landing gracefully before sprinting into the woods. That girl, Tenma thinks, she snuck out again for training. From his hiding place, he observes the village's main gate, guarded and closed. He notes the gate has only one entrance, manned by about 4 guards. The strongest of them appears to be a cynical-looking young wolfman. A pig-faced youth mocks him for dreaming of becoming an adventurer. The wolfman, Ranga, seethes, knowing the youth will just tattle to his father. The village holds about 120 people, an even mix of humans and beastmen. They are a hardworking, self-sufficient community of pioneers. Their only well is deep, requiring immense effort to draw water. The village elder is a frail-looking human, seemingly burdened by his duties. He spots Misha again, who has begun her solitary training near the wall. She practices her sword swings alone, her expression one of fierce determination. A hidden Tenma smiles as his subtle magic stops her opponent's blade. Confused but finished with her training, Misha begins to climb back over the wall. She looks back, sensing something is amiss, but Tenma remains unseen. He sighs, wishing he had a skill to easily win people's trust. He lets out a weary sigh, contemplating the difficulty of social interaction. In a sterile office, Anna stretches, exhausted from her long day of work. Director Hagen appears, holding a cup of coffee, and calls her name. He kindly offers her the coffee, asking if she prefers it with milk. Anna accepts the drink, surprised by her boss's unexpected thoughtfulness. She reports hearing from Managing Director Hayes' secretary, causing Hagen to react. Hagen's face twists into a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. Anna recoils in fear as he mutters the name of his rival, Hayes. He quickly downs a glass of water, trying to regain his composure. His hand clenches, crushing the paper cup with a sharp, angry crack. A cold smile appears as he predicts his rival will soon face the consequences. He turns back to a startled Anna, asking what she was reporting. She confirms there have been no complaints regarding Tenma from the client world. Hagen says he's more worried about Tenma's ridiculously high stats and skills. He strokes his chin, lost in thought, considering the potential problems. It is Tenma's extreme caution, he concludes, that is the most worrying trait. Back in the new world, Tenma surveys the landscape before the village. He thinks that after careful observation, it is finally time for action. He checks his map one last time, noting he is 500 meters from the gate. He recalls a guildmate asking how he became so good at appraisals. He had explained that he learned by meticulously recording and analyzing his failures. Inspired by the memory, he feels a renewed sense of determination. "Everyone, watch over me," he declares to his old friends. "I'll do this." At the gate, Ranga senses someone approaching from behind him. "Hey, you there, kid?" he calls out from his post in the watchtower. Tenma jumps, startled by the sudden direct address. He thinks, "A person? I'm really talking to a person after so many years." Ranga's face contorts with confusion at the boy's strange reaction. Overwhelmed with emotion, Tenma bursts into tears, much to Ranga's shock. "All right, that's enough," Ranga yells, ordering him to drop his weapons. A blank panel emphasizes the awkward silence. Ranga inspects Tenma's sheath knife, asking if he has any other weapons. Tenma, still sniffling, explains that there is a knife in his backpack. "Don't just stand there staring," Ranga snaps at the other guard. He explains to Tenma that confiscating weapons is just the village's rule. Tenma, having calmed down, correctly guesses Ranga's age is around 40. Ranga is stunned, asking how he knew. As Tenma clarifies, he's 14. Ranga pats him roughly on the back, telling him to eat more. The other guard remarks that Tenma seems weird, but not like a bad person. Tenma is relieved, thinking his first impression wasn't as bad as he feared. The guards are suddenly confronted by a large boorish figure. The pig-faced Ujio appears, drunk and with a woman on his arm. One of the guards tells Ujio that it isn't his shift to be on duty. Ujio sneers, accusing them of slacking off while their fathers are away. He takes a heavy, deliberate step towards the group at the gate. He gets right in Tenma's face, aggressively demanding to know who he is. Tenma panics, his mind going completely blank despite all his preparation. Ujio dismisses Tenma's stammered explanation about wanting to become an adult. "Whatever, that's fine," Ujio says, draping a heavy arm over Tenma. A cruel, sneering grin spreads across his pig-like face. He taps his head, mocking the foolish dreams of would-be adventurers. He says such dreamers often end up as lost, crying children. He tells Tenma that Ranga and Misha are trouble enough for the village. Ranga grits his teeth in frustration, barely containing his anger. Ujio tells Tenma he can stay for a few days before going to Randa. A guard protests that Ujio can't just decide things on his own. "My word is my father's word," Ujio declares with smug authority. He tells Ranga that looking after one more brat is his problem now. He throws his empty bottle to the ground and stomps on it. The gate is shut, leaving the guards seething with impotent rage. Ranga apologizes for the incident, assuring Tenma the village has good people. As they walk, Tenma thanks him, relieved that he is no longer alone. He clutches his chest, overwhelmed with the emotion of being accepted. Ranga points to his house, saying Tenma can sleep in the barn. He advises Tenma to wait a few days for a merchant to arrive. That way he won't get lost trying to travel to the next town. He offers Tenma some hay and says he'll bring a sheet to use. A feverish Misha appears, calling out for her brother-in-law Ranga. Ranga opens the barn door, asking Misha what's wrong. Misha explains, flustered, that her sister May's fever has returned. Ranga frantically tells Tenma his daughter is sick and to wait. Tenma sits alone in the hay, looking lost and thoughtful. He hugs his knees, quietly contemplating the sudden turn of events. His gaze lands on a small pair of woven sandals hanging nearby. He recognizes the design, realizing they belong to the girl he rescued. He clutches his head, fearing her old injury is the cause. Tenma's face is a mask of shock, guilt, and dawning horror. A small, strange, goat-like creature suddenly lands right on his head. A whole family of the creatures gathers around him, bleeding with curiosity. He tries shooing them, saying he doesn't have a room for them. He stops, a sudden, brilliant idea striking him. He does have a room. A wooden door materializes out of thin air at his command. He cautiously peeks through the opening, unsure of what he'll find. Inside is a lavish tropical paradise, leaving him utterly stunned. He realizes with a shock that his pocket dimension wasn't reset. He looks around, confused, as he certainly didn't redecorate it himself. He spots a bottle of Orca beer, a clue to who is here. Hearing a splash, he cautiously approaches the sound from another room. Throwing the door open, he finds Gale relaxing in a tub. "I can't believe we can meet again," Tenma cries out, overjoyed. Gale explains it's simply redecorated while waiting for him to show up. The AI believed he was safe, but notes he seems a bit thinner. Tenma sees the water on Gale's face and asks if it's crying. Gale tearfully insists it's not crying, just a misunderstanding. Tenma smiles, saying much has happened, and asks Gale to listen. He then remembers there is something he needs Gale to investigate first. Gale agrees, but says it has good news and bad news for him. Tenma is surprised by this unexpected and serious announcement. He asks Gale to repeat itself, confirming the good and bad news. He prepares himself for the worst possible thing he can imagine. He decides to hear the bad news first, a choice Gale expected. His greatest fear is being sent back to the lonely training tutorial. The bad news is that Gale can't leave this room to travel with him. Gale peeks at him, gauging his reaction to the unfortunate limitation. Tenma asks why Gale is the one with the disappointed look. Gale is surprised, asking if Tenma isn't the one who's disappointed. Tenma declares he'll just build a special space for them here. Gale is touched, calling itself the luckiest orca for meeting Tenma. Tenma smiles, replying that he was the lucky one to meet Gale. The scene transitions to a flashback of Tenma's difficult past life. He recalls escaping his unrewarding reality by immersing himself in video games. He remembers the joy of his online friends, a stark contrast to reality. An overhead view shows his lonely death, collapsed in his messy apartment. After his collapse, he had no expectations for being reincarnated. He remembers waking up in a sterile white room before the administrator. She had explained the tutorial's end conditions, 3 months or level 10. The administrator's panicked face is shown amidst system warnings, showing her error. She had noted Tenma was a rare type who wouldn't break from isolation. He recalls the welcome screen and not being able to speak to Gale. He spent his time alone on the island, training and exploring. He enjoyed the simple pleasures, like a good meal during his training. The clock ticked past 3 months, but his reincarnation did not begin. He sat by the sea as Gale's own functional limits were lifted. He thinks back on the administrator, realizing she might be his benefactor. For 15 years, he trained with Gale, mastering his many skills. He pushed himself to his limits, collapsing from exhaustion repeatedly. He finally faced the massive dragon, the final boss of the dungeon. He resolved to continue leveling up, his determination unwavering. Gale narrates that it took a whole month to find Tenma again. It had to hide in the forest, watching over him from afar. It saw Tenma discover the injured and unconscious Misha in the grass. It watched him carefully tend to the wound on her small ankle. It observed his awkwardness after 15 years without human contact. Gale notes how Tenma, despite helping, was treated with suspicion. He had to summon all his courage just to take a step forward. He finally approached the village gate, finding kindness despite the wariness. Back in the present, Tenma asks about the good news Gale mentioned. Gale hops from the tub, eager to show him the surprise. The AI decides that showing him directly will be much faster. The small dolphin leads him down a hallway within his pocket dimension. Stopping at a door, Gale tells him, "This is it." Tenma opens the door and stares in absolute shock at the room. He joyfully exclaims that it's his old room, with all his furniture. He sees the small wooden figurines of his guildmates on a shelf. His hands tremble as he picks up one of his old notebooks. He flips through the pages, seeing his own handwriting from long ago. He had believed all these precious memories were lost in the reset. He thanks Gale, who asks if that was good news. A sudden, panicked memory flashes through Tenma's mind. He remembers Misha's plight, and Gale asks what's wrong. He rushes to a trapdoor, needing to find something urgently. He descends into a vast storeroom filled with his old supplies. He stockpiled supplies to counter bugs, but the food is now expired. He frantically searches through crates for one specific non-perishable item. He finds it, a pristine, ornate bottle containing a powerful elixir. He quickly and securely tucks the precious bottle into his pocket. He rushes to the exit, telling Gale he's stepping out for a bit. He explains that the girl is sick, and this elixir can save her. Gale looks on with a very serious and disapproving expression. The AI states that while his intentions are good, it opposes his plan. Tenma is shocked, asking why Gale would be against helping her. He pulls the elixir from his pocket, still determined to use it. He stands with Gale, waiting for an explanation for its objection. Gale explains the danger of a mysterious boy in a poor village. It warns that greedy people would stop at nothing to get the elixir. Tenma looks horrified, realizing his kindness could cause a disaster. He holds the elixir, a tool that could bring salvation or ruin. A final image shows hands opening a modern can of chuhai. She waits on a desolate subway platform, lost in thought. Her mind drifts to Tenma's unbelievable 15-year tutorial. She worries for reincarnators with too much power, who are often used or lose their way. A profound sense of unease settles over her. She is truly worried. Suddenly, the brilliant headlights of an approaching train startle her from her thoughts. The train roars into the station, its horn echoing through the dark tunnel. The scene shifts to a quiet, rustic village house under a cloudy sky. Inside, the small fox-eared girl, May, lies in bed, weak with fever. A relieved cry rings out as the family sees that May has finally awakened. Her older sister, Misha, rushes to her side, pulling her into a tight hug. The little girl, confused, asks her big sister why she is crying. Misha wipes a tear away, simply confirming that she had been. She explains that a man Ranga brought gave May special medicine to cure her. May's face breaks into a wide, joyous smile upon hearing the news. The family's father weeps openly, thanking everyone for saving his daughter. From the doorway, Tenma watches, quietly satisfied that his plan worked. The scene shifts, transitioning from the village to Tenma's pocket dimension. There, Gale asks Tenma to imagine the situation from the villager's point of view. It asks what he'd think if a boy suddenly produced a priceless elixir. Gale warns that revealing Tenma's abnormal abilities would cause immense chaos. Tenma quietly agrees, acknowledging that he understands the potential risks. He admits he understands, but his desire to help remains unshakable. Gale relents, but only if Tenma agrees to follow its instructions precisely. Tenma listens intently, a bead of nervous sweat on his face. He asks his friend what he should do, and Gale says it's simple. The first step, Gale instructs, is to add many scratches to the elixir bottle. A quick transition shows the textured wall of the rustic village home. Tenma stands before Ranga's family, ready to enact their carefully laid plan. Ranga's wife, Sasha, immediately questions why he would help a total stranger. Tenma is flustered by her directness, scratching his head in embarrassment. Ranga steps in, formally introducing his wife, Sasha, who greets Tenma. Tenma is utterly stunned to learn the elegant woman is Ranga's wife. Ranga introduces Tenma to the rest of his family by May's bedside. Sasha introduces their youngest, Malin, who happily says to call her May. She then introduces her quiet sister-in-law, Misha, who offers a polite greeting. Tenma smiles, remarking that little May looks just like her mother. May's eyes widen slightly, asking if she has seen this big brother before. Ranga then asks Tenma how he came to possess such a rare elixir. Tenma begins the fabricated story of a family heirloom from his grandfather. His grandfather, he explains, told him he must always help those in need. Internally, Tenma prays to Gale that this absurd story will actually work. Sasha and Ranga exchange a look, considering his incredible tale. Sasha comments that its age must be why it is a treasured heirloom. Tenma feels a pang of guilt, but is relieved they believe him. Sasha takes his hands, sincerely thanking him for giving them such a precious gift. She beams, offering to properly thank him for his incredible kindness. Ranga, overcome with emotion, grabs Tenma in a tearful, bone-crushing hug. Crushed against the beastman's chest, Tenma stammers that he was glad to help. Sasha scolds her husband for overwhelming their guest, who just pats his back. Tenma, finally free, is amazed by the sheer power of the beastman's hug. He glances aside, taking in the warm, if overwhelming, family atmosphere. The family is finally at ease, their home filled with relief and gratitude. Tenma looks out the window, a small, satisfied smile on his face. He stands at the open window, looking out over the quiet village. The pioneer house sits peacefully under a calm daytime sky. The view pans across the tranquil, rustic landscape surrounding the village. That night, Tenma is licked awake by small creatures in the barn. He sits up with a yawn, surrounded by the curious, goat-like animals. He chose the barn so the villagers wouldn't know he slipped away. The next morning, a soft knock on the barn door makes him smile. Little May shyly peeks around the corner, wishing him a good morning. He greets her warmly as she runs towards him, her shyness gone. She gets very close, asking him where her brother-in-law Ranga is. This way, she says, leading him out of the barn and into the village. Tenma watches her energetic form as she runs ahead, her fluffy tail bouncing. As they walk, villagers happily greet the now healthy and cheerful May. The villagers whisper amongst themselves, wondering about the newcomer from yesterday. They arrive at the well where Ranga greets Tenma, saying he's fast. Ranga strains, his muscles bulging, as he hauls water from the deep well. He hands off a bucket, telling a villager to be careful with it. Tenma peers into the darkness, noting it's the village's only water source. He offers to take over for Ranga, who warns him the bucket is heavy. Ranga hesitates, feeling the immense strain in his arms. Sasha appears, chiding him for making their benefactor do such hard work. A full bucket of water is pulled up from the well's dark depths. Tenma easily lifts it, apologizing for causing them any trouble. Ranga, holding May, tells her he'll be sure to tell Sasha. A villager watches from afar, surprised by the boy's unexpected strength. The village children gather around, asking him to fill their buckets too. Tenma proudly puffs out his chest, telling them to leave it to him. Misha watches from the side, her suspicions about him finally confirmed. Smoke curls from the chimney of Ranga's house as evening approaches. Inside, Sasha announces to the family that dinner will be ready soon. Tema sits at the table, taking notes in a small journal. Misha helps prepare for the meal, adding firewood to the hearth. A simple, hearty meal of soup and bread is laid out on the table. May cheerfully reveals that it was Tenma who saved her in the forest. Ranga once again grabs Tenma in a powerful emotional hug. Sasha asks Tenma if he was really in the forest for over a month. Caught in Ranga's grip, Tenma realizes he's in a very tight spot. Ranga turns to him, his expression suddenly serious and suspicious. The tension breaks as Ranga bursts out laughing about Tenma's poor sense of direction. Misha watches the scene unfold, her expression unreadable and distant. She looks on with a serious, thoughtful gaze, pondering the mysterious boy. Back in his dimension, Gale sits on a couch, reviewing data on a tablet. Tenma enters the room, wiping his face with a towel after a long day. He announces his return, and Gale happily welcomes him back. He places a gift on the table as Gale asks about the girl's condition. He explains it has been a week, and he plans to give this bird to Sasha. A close-up shows Tenma's hands holding a plucked horo-horo bird for the elder. Tenma explains to Gale that avoiding conflict is now impossible, sparking his friend's curiosity. Walking with Gale, Tenma begins to explain the recent, unfortunate turn of events. His gift of a horo-horo bird backfired, bringing the elder and villagers to complain. Gale, ever the strategist, asked Tenma how he handled the difficult confrontation. The source of the conflict was a single, generously gifted roasted horo-horo bird. He simply told them to share the bird equally, an unsatisfying answer for them. Gale observes the villagers' petty squabbles on its monitor with a cynical smirk. Tenma thinks they should hunt their own food, but knows it's not that simple. Ranga had warned him that the local monster population was dangerously increasing lately. The horo-horo birds are clever, with keen eyesight that makes them difficult prey. In private, Tenma knows his powerful throwing skill makes hunting them effortless. He confirms to Gale that for normal people, hunting these creatures is very hard. Following Gale's advice, he carefully conceals his true power and vast resources. Gale admits its concern stems from Tenma's kind heart, which Tenma finds amusing. Gale ponders the data on its tablet, concerned by the sudden population spike. A graph confirms its fears, suggesting a dangerous shift in the local ecosystem. Gale questions Tenma about his plans and the long-overdue merchant's arrival. Tenma pauses his chores, thoughtfully considering his uncertain departure from the village. He feels a duty to Ranga's family and wants to repay their kindness first. Gale sweats nervously, knowing Tenma's good intentions could lead to more trouble. It cautions him to keep a low profile, a warning Tenma promises to heed. He also feels a lingering distance with Misha he wishes to resolve before leaving. His chores now complete, Tenma decides it is time to act on his plans. When Gale asks about his plan, Tenma simply tells his friend to watch. He stands before a massive waterfall, ready to reveal a hidden secret. The water parts, revealing a shimmering spirit, much to Gale's absolute delight. Gale thanks Tenma for the magical sight, but Tenma has one more surprise. He presents a small, perfectly carved wooden figurine of Gale in his hands. The thoughtful gift moves the usually stoic AI to tears of pure happiness. Overcome with emotion, Gale declares that Tenma is truly the best friend ever. In stark contrast, Ujo spews venom, calling Tenma the lowest form of scum. Misha stands her ground, clutching her sword, her expression one of quiet defiance. Ujio confronts her, demanding she listen to his poisonous words about Tenma. She glances back toward the village, her loyalty to her home being tested. She recalls Tenma's kindness, remembering him playing joyfully with the village children. The elder falsely claims the monster population has surged since Tenma's arrival. He adds that the merchant is a month late, implying Tenma is the cause. Misha looks down, troubled and uncertain, pressured by the elder's accusations. He accuses Tenma of hoarding the rare horo-horo birds in his item box. Ujio calls out her name, preparing to make his manipulative, cruel offer. He offers to help her dreams if she'll help him find Tenma's weakness. She clenches her fist, momentarily tempted by the offer to achieve her goals. But she turns away, shouting her refusal at the two manipulative men. She declares that Tenma, though a stranger, is the one who saved her sister. Enraged, she calls Ujio scum, just like his disgraceful parents before him. With Ujio's sneering face reflected in her eye, she tells him not to underestimate her. She declares with fierce determination that she will achieve her dreams on her own. Ujio is left stunned and speechless by her unexpected and fiery defiance. He sneers, dismissing her as nothing more than a foolish, stubborn girl. As they leave, Ujio throws a bottle and warns her she will regret this. Misha is left standing alone, her head bowed after the ugly confrontation. From a distance, Tenma watches her, having witnessed the entire exchange. He looks from her solitary figure to the happy children playing in the village. His expression hardens with resolve. He knows he must do something to help. At the agency, Anna takes a coffee break while waiting for an elevator. Her colleagues complain about their difficult clients, the many gods they serve. She muses that Director Hagen must have had similar struggles in his past. The elevator panel shows a vast number of floors representing their many clients. Anna and Hagen discreetly observe a colleague before stepping out to talk. The director suddenly addresses her, his voice sharp and catching her off guard. He asks for an update on Tenma's case, startling the preoccupied Anna. She reports that thankfully no complaints have come in regarding Tenma yet. She notes that while abilities can cause trouble, she felt Tenma was reliable. She believes he is decisive and asks if the director is worrying too much. A flicker of doubt remains in her eyes despite her reassuring words. Hagen reveals his true concern, the troublemakers that people like Tenma attract. Anna, confused, asks him to clarify what kind of people he means. He describes them as pitiful people whose envy quickly festers into pure malice. They cannot accept their own feelings of inferiority and instead resent the superior person. They justify their hatred by painting themselves as victims, escalating their delusions. Anna's eyes widen as she begins to understand the dangerous psychological dynamic. Tenma's immense power makes him an inevitable target for this type of person. She recalls seeing this exact behavior back when she was in elementary school. She realizes that such people will be drawn to him, regardless of his wishes. Hagen agrees that Tenma's reserved nature is a critical disadvantage in these situations. Standing in the elevator, Hagen prepares to deliver his final, grim analysis. He concludes that Tenma is completely ill-equipped to handle such malicious people. A dark shadow falls, signaling the beginning of the Elder's wicked plot. From a dark pantry, Ujio asks his father, the Elder, if he called. The Elder sits with his son, ordering him to deal with the problem, Tenma. Ujio listens to his father's command, a bottle in hand and annoyance on his face. He asks who, and the Elder clarifies it's the boy who ruined his feast. Ujio remembers Tenma with the children, his expression curdling with resentment. The Elder finds Tenma's selfless act suspicious, believing he must be plotting something. The fire in the hearth crackles, mirroring the Elder's burning paranoia. He imagines Tenma using the birds to usurp his authority with Ranga's help. The Elder sweats, believing his own position of power within the village is threatened. He also notes the recent strange occurrences since the boy's arrival. The monster population is increasing, and the vital merchant still hasn't arrived. He worries that if more suspicious things happen, their control will be lost. The intimidating bare-masked Zuratan enters, carrying a heavy load of firewood. Ujio dismissively orders the hulking man to stack the firewood in the corner. Zuratan silently obeys while Ujio watches him with a contemptuous expression. The Elder complains that the firewood is being used up too quickly now. He grumbles about the increasing number of troublesome mouths to feed. The Elder's wife listens from the side, her expression filled with quiet worry. Ujio leans in conspiratorially, telling his father that he has a plan. The two men huddle together, plotting their next move against the outsider. As he works, the silent Zuratan glances back, a silent observer to their plotting. A close-up reveals an eye wide with shock, sensing the coming danger. In a dimly lit room, the village elder furiously demands to know if his son will truly go so far with their scheme. The elder sneers, blaming his own father's softness for allowing certain people to become arrogant and defiant. His son, the pig-faced Ujio, smiles with cruel confidence and tells his father to leave everything to him. The scene shifts to a dense forest, where a clear trail of footprints is pressed into the muddy ground. Tenma, his face hidden by a hood, silently follows the tracks, his expression lost in thought. He calls out into the trees, correctly identifying the person he is following as the wolfman, Ranga. A heavy boot takes a firm step forward from behind a thicket of trees, revealing his presence. Ranga emerges, his arms crossed and a hard, suspicious look on his face as he confronts the boy. The two of them stand facing each other in a clearing, a silent tension hanging in the air. Tenma internally notes that Ranga's tracking skills are poor, likely due to a lack of patience for such tedious work. Ranga's ear twitches as he hears Tenma, and he demands to know who sent the boy to follow him. In a shocking and sudden move, Ranga throws himself to the ground in a deep, desperate bow. His face contorted with emotion, he begs Tenma to take him on as a student and train him. Tenma can only stare in utter bewilderment, completely caught off guard by the wolfman's plea. Later, sitting on a fallen log, Ranga explains that he came of his own free will, not on anyone's orders. He admits that he was deeply moved and inspired by watching Tenma contribute so much to the village. Holding a picture of his family, Ranga declares that he wants to become stronger for them and their home. He passionately asks for Tenma's help, inspired by a fleeting, imaginary vision of his family cheering him on. Tenma is touched by his sincerity and says he understands, though he knows he should first consult with Gale. Ranga, taking this as an agreement, grabs Tenma by the shoulders and enthusiastically accepts on his behalf. Ranga recalls all the ways Tenma has helped, from teaching the children to improving the village well. He marvels at how Tenma accomplishes so much without a hint of arrogance or pride. The wolfman looks down at his family photo, his respect for the quiet boy growing ever deeper. He reflects that Tenma, despite his youth, somehow seems far more mature and adult than he is. Sitting by a stream, he asks Tenma directly why someone so young acts with such profound humility. The question sends Tenma into a silent panic, as his true age is closer to 40 than 14. Thinking fast, he claims his demeanor is simply the result of teachings from his master and grandfather. Ranga is completely convinced, believing this also explains why Tenma entrusted him with the precious elixir. Tenma breathes an internal sigh of relief, glad that his hastily constructed lie was so easily accepted. But Ranga then asks a follow-up question. What is the name of this wise grandfather? He smiles, certain that such a great master must have a cool and dignified-sounding name. Tenma grits his teeth, his mind racing as he desperately tries to invent a plausible name. Under pressure, he begins to stammer, the first syllable of a familiar name escaping his lips. He finally lands on a name, speaking the name of his AI companion, Gale, into the forest air. The scene cuts to black, a quiet moment before the inevitable and furious reaction from the real Gale. In the pocket dimension, Gale explodes with rage, demanding to know who dared call it Tenma's Ojisan. Tenma sheepishly apologizes to the fuming AI, explaining that he was put on the spot and had no choice. Gale quickly moves on, stating that they have more important things to discuss than Tenma's poor excuses. Tenma lays out the current situation, Ranga's sincere request for training and the elders' growing hostility. As Tenma explains, Gale appears to doze off for a moment, still sipping its iced drink. Waking up, Gale bluntly analyzes the situation, noting that leaving the village is the easiest but least desirable option. Tenma agrees that he cannot leave, as there is still too much he needs to accomplish in the village. His greatest concern, he explains, is that the cruel Ujio might decide to harm Ranga's innocent family. He believes he can handle the situation by adapting strategies he learned during his past life as a gamer. Gale listens to his proposal, a shrewd and calculating look in its cartoonish eyes as it considers the plan. It agrees to help, but on one absolute condition. Tenma must follow its instructions to the letter. Tenma agrees instantly and enthusiastically, his complete trust taking the usually unflappable Gale by surprise. Gale questions his blind faith, asking if he would truly agree to any plan without even hearing it first. Tenma simply smiles, his expression warm and sincere, stating that because he trusts Gale, it will be fine. Gale is visibly touched by this declaration of absolute faith, its cheeks flushing with a happy blush. Overcome with emotion, it lets out a flustered squeal of delight, moved by Tenma's trust. Composing itself, Gale declares that it must live up to this trust and begins to brief Tenma on its plan. Later, Tenma stands in his room within the pocket dimension, looking out the window as he prepares. He turns his attention to the wall, where several framed pictures are hanging in a neat row. He studies the paintings, recognizing them as depictions of the village's founding and its early history. He notes the surprising skill of the artist but focuses on the content, absorbing the story they tell. His study session is cut short as he is summoned to the elder's house, where his enemies are waiting. The elder, flanked by Ujio and Zuratan, informs Tenma that he has been brought here to be given a job. Tenma, sitting before them, cautiously asks what kind of job the elder has in mind for him. The elder points a finger, lecturing that those who fail to contribute have no right to live in the village. Tenma quietly agrees with the principle, but is disgusted by the elder's overwhelming and unfair greed. The scene flashes back to the previous night, rain lashing against the windows of the elder's house. The elder recalls his son's boastful promise to leave it to me, wondering what the boy was planning. He reveals his own simple plan, to send Tenma on a fool's errand to find the missing merchant, Solon. He remembers giving an advance to an adventurer who then took the money and fled, assuming a repeat. Ujio, however, expresses doubt, believing that the adventurer, Solon, was not the type to simply run away. The elder dismisses his son's concerns, but admits that sending a 14-year-old on such a mission is foolish. Ujio then proposes an alternative, a seemingly more fitting task of hunting birds and fixing traps for a boy his age. The elder grins with malicious delight, seeing this as the perfect, demeaning mission for the ungrateful brat. Ujio mentions the valuable and difficult-to-hunt horo-horo birds, a key component of their cruel scheme. The elder clenches his fist in agreement, eager for the chance to teach the boy a harsh lesson. They consider the possibility of Tenma refusing, seeing it as a convenient excuse to exile him from the village. Ujio, however, reveals that he has an even more sinister plan in mind should Tenma refuse. His face twists into a monstrous grin as he explains his true trap: to punish Ranga's family instead. The elder is momentarily stunned by the sheer cruelty of his son's plan, then deeply impressed. He chuckles darkly, praising his son for being so reliably vicious and manipulative in his scheming. He adds that if necessary, he can simply order the loyal Zuritan to enforce their will without any violence. The scene returns to the present, with the three imposing figures looming over the seated Tenma. Ujio smirks, telling Tenma that he is perfectly free to refuse their generous job offer. Before the elder can state the penalty for refusal, Tenma cheerfully accepts the original, impossible task of finding Solon. The elder is left completely speechless, his triumphant declaration cut short by his utter confusion. Both the elder and Ujio stare with wide-eyed, slack-jawed shock, their carefully laid trap instantly nullified. Tenma places a hand over his heart, politely stating that he is indebted to the village and is happy to help. His earnest and unexpected acceptance leaves all three of his accusers completely baffled and dumbfounded. The elder and Ujio can only stare back, wondering if the boy is some kind of unbelievable idiot. Ujio quickly recovers, suspecting a trick but deciding he can still exploit the situation to his advantage. Tenma internally confirms that this confrontation is unfolding exactly as his companion Gale had predicted. He has a fleeting vision of Gale sipping a drink, wondering if the next phase of the plan will be as accurate. The elder, regaining his composure, announces that he has one more condition to add to the mission. He declares that the massive, bear-masked Zuritan will accompany Tenma as an escort to ensure he behaves. Tenma graciously accepts the escort, privately marveling at how perfectly, almost frighteningly, the plan is working. Later, a shirtless Ranga confronts a similarly dressed Tenma, declaring he will beat him senseless before he leaves. Tenma stands ready, his fists clenched, accepting the strange but sincere challenge from his friend. Ranga initiates their sparring session with a powerful, sweeping kick aimed directly at Tenma. Misha watches from a distance, her expression etched with worry for her brother-in-law Ranga. The powerful kick lands squarely on Tenma's back with a loud, resounding thud that echoes in the clearing. Misha winces as she sees the brutal blow connect, certain that it must have hurt Tenma badly. Ranga, however, realizes that he instinctively pulled his kick at the very last second, softening the impact. Impressed by Tenma's resilience, he roars the boy's name and launches forward to continue the assault. He unleashes a furious and unrelenting barrage of punches, continuing their brutal but necessary training. The wolfman Ranga shouts in disbelief, realizing his attack was dodged. Tenma, scraped but focused, glares back with fiery determination. Watching from afar, Misha worries that this isn't the right way to fight. Ranga retaliates, grabbing Tenma's head in a powerful, crushing grip. In a flash of movement, he executes a perfect judo throw. Misha lets out a small gasp, shocked by the sudden, violent takedown. A heavy thud echoes as Tenma's body slams into the muddy ground. Ranga pins the struggling Tenma, firmly holding him down. After suggesting a break, Ranga is surprised by Tenma's plea for another round. A proud smirk spreads across Ranga's face, impressed by the boy's spirit. He vows to beat all of Tenma's weaknesses out of him before he leaves. Ranga suddenly notices Misha watching their rough sparring session. She thinks to herself that her brother-in-law is getting much too carried away. Ranga is momentarily flustered by her disapproving presence. He apologizes for his childishness, but Tenma insists that he is happy. Tenma explains his tutorial training lacked any real combat against people. He exclaims that fighting a person provides an unimaginable amount of experience. Ranga is taken aback, surprised by Tenma's genuine joy in the harsh training. 7 days prior, their training began with long-distance running exercises. 5 days ago, Tenma practiced his presence perception skills under Ranga's watch. 3 days ago, they trained together in the art of hunting and tracking. Ranga feels his own training was a failure, amazed Tenma is never tired. He feels ashamed for getting lost in the desire to win, but Tenma reassures him. The sun shines down on the forest clearing, illuminating their training ground. Tenma stands ready, confidently calling for a rematch against his partner. They begin another round of sparring as Misha watches from the sidelines. Tenma is alert and focused, his body coiled and ready to react. Misha observes them with a quiet, thoughtful, and slightly troubled expression. She sits alone by a tree, contemplating how incredibly strong Tenma is. She wonders if her own dream of becoming an adventurer is impossible. A single frustrated tear escapes her eye as she considers her future. In the middle of the spar, Tenma freezes, his expression one of shock. His senses detect a bizarre presence, one he has never encountered before. A vision of massive, swirling, hypnotic eyes flashes through his mind. The presence vanishes, and he wonders if it was just his imagination. Ranga snaps him out of it, asking why he's suddenly spacing out. Tenma lets out a startled cry, sending a flock of birds into the air. He yelps in pain as Ranga's headlock tightens around him. In his dimension, Tenma stretches, wondering what his greatest weakness is. Gale bluntly informs him his interpersonal combat skill is a huge liability. Tenma grimaces, knowing it would take 18 years of training to fix. Gale reassures him, stating that it has a plan to deal with their enemies. It explains that while the Elder's family is strong, they can be outmaneuvered. Gale's plan will also protect Ranga's family from any future retaliation. Tenma asks if such a complex plan is possible, and Gale confirms it is. First, however, Gale insists that Tenma must heal his sore muscles. It playfully pounces on him, determined to treat his training injuries. Gale remembers something, producing a bottle of water for Tenma. Tenma describes a strange, boss-level presence he felt in the forest. Gale is perplexed, confirming no such powerful creature exists in that area. Tenma sighs, concluding that it must have been his imagination after all. Gale struggles to explain it, simply noting it's a rare event for him. With a clap of its flippers, Gale declares the mysterious matter closed. Tenma thanks his friend as they prepare to return to the village. Suddenly, his keen senses detect a new presence approaching. His mental map shows a single dot moving towards Ranga's house. He perceives someone coming, their presence weak but full of energy. Recognizing the unique movement, he realizes the visitor must be May. He tells Gale that it's time for him to head back to the village. Smoke curls gently from the chimney of Ranga's simple, cozy home. Tenma sits down for a warm and lively dinner with Ranga's family. Ranga playfully leans over and steals a large mouthful of Tenma's noodles. The plate of spaghetti and meatballs looks hearty and delicious. The wolfman slurps down the stolen food with noisy enjoyment. Both he and Tenma grin, happily requesting another serving. A smiling Sasha brings more food to the table for the hungry pair. Ranga notices Misha has lost her appetite, urging her to eat to be an adventurer. Misha stares at her food, her fork hovering uncertainly. Inspired, she begins to eat with renewed and fierce determination. After dinner, Sasha warmly thanks Tenma for his help. She says that the meat and vegetables he provides are a huge help to them. Ranga boasts he helped too, but Sasha teasingly says he only brought back plants. Ranga proudly calls Tenma his martial arts disciple, much to the boy's embarrassment. He reflects that Tenma taught him the value of practical survival skills. He sincerely thanks Tenma for teaching him what's truly important to survive. A flustered Tenma claims he was just repeating his grandfather's teachings. Tenma listens with a serious expression as Sasha begins to speak. His face shows a hint of concern as she continues her story. Sasha's expression is somber and thoughtful as she recounts the past. The scene transitions with a dark panel setting a grim tone. Tenma helps Sasha with the dishes, saying her help is appreciated. He sits with her as Ranga plays with May in the background. Sasha explains Ranga trains not for adventure, but to protect his family. She tells Tenma not to worry, assuring him that Ranga will be fine. She thanks him again, but her voice carries a heavy, unspoken burden. She warns that when people gain power, they change and become greedy. She says with a sad look that the village elder was not always so cruel. In the past, he was a simple, hardworking, and understandably greedy man. Tenma listens silently, a look of shocked concern on his face. Sasha clutches her arms, saying the elder is now a different person entirely. She turns to Tenma, her expression full of worry, and tells him to be careful. That night, Misha brings a stack of firewood to the barn for Tenma. She watches him through the window, a silent guardian in the dark. Her face is a mask of determination mixed with deep concern for him. A bright full moon illuminates the dark, rolling hills of the forest. In the undergrowth, a small, rabbit-like creature cries out in terror. A pair of grotesque, leering goblins closes in on their helpless prey. They are suddenly stopped in their tracks by a looming, dark shadow. The goblins look up, their faces contorted in abject fear. A massive, silhouetted black cat with glowing eyes stands before them. Two terrified goblins flee through the moonlit forest, abandoning their crude sword behind. Innocent rabbit-like creatures watch as a massive dark silhouette looms over them protectively. A large cat-like beast leaps gracefully through the dark canopy of the trees. Its silhouette is framed by the full moon as it perches atop a crag. From its vantage point, the creature gazes down upon a distant, palisaded village. The powerful, white-furred beast watches over the settlement, a silent and mysterious guardian. In his pocket dimension, Gale senses a strange presence rippling through the air. The dolphin AI furiously scribbles notes, realizing the situation is escalating faster than expected. Gale sits amidst its research, certain it can protect Tenma through this crisis. Suddenly, the entire dimension is rocked by a violent, unexpected jolt of energy. "What is it?" Gale cries, rushing towards a door to investigate the disturbance. Peeking nervously through the crack, the AI looks upon a scene of chaos. It shrieks in alarm, recognizing that its private dimension area is under attack. Gale realizes that a battle is raging within the duplicated training grounds it created. It identifies the conflict as a massive battle between opposing hordes of powerful creatures. A second front shows a great beast tearing through a wave of monsters. One battle involves a bipedal fighter, while the other features a quadrupedal beast. A cunning glint appears in Gale's eyes. This chaos could be used advantageously. Back in the world, Tenma enjoys a peaceful moment outside his small cabin. He stands on a grassy hill, surrounded by a flock of small goat creatures. Inside, he reads a book, calmly accepting that his departure is set for tomorrow. That night, Misha stares out her window, her face etched with worry. In the agency, Director Hagen methodically cleans the parts of a vintage pistol. His subordinate Anna bursts into the office, frantically calling out his name. Unflustered, Hagen asks what is wrong, while Anna says she heard from sales. He addresses her, asking if her urgent news concerns Tenma's case. Anna gratefully chugs down the bottle of water Hagen offers her. She reports that, first and foremost, Tenma is safe from harm. She continues, explaining the client goddess is satisfied with Tenma's extended training period. Hagen notes with some relief that a local god is accompanying Tenma. Hearing this, he sits back in his chair, feeling momentarily reassured. But Anna's expression turns grave as she mentions the subordinate god's troubling alias. The name is revealed, the terrifying and ominous Slaughter King of the Great Ocean. Hagen asks if this is certain, but Anna admits she doesn't know. He presses a gloved hand to his sweating brow, deeply disturbed by this. He crushes a paper cup, thinking that for now, there are no complaints. Anna wryly suggests that's because Tenma is living as a recluse. Hagen dismisses this, saying that can't be the end of the story. He explains that summoning a reincarnator is an incredibly expensive undertaking for any god. He adds that a powerful guardian god is now with Tenma. Anna hands him a document, saying yes, that's right, as he reviews it. He explains gods summon reincarnators for reasons like a demon king's emergence. Compensation? Anna asks, her eyes widening as she processes his words. Hagen clarifies it's for when a god's mistake threatens to destabilize a world. A reincarnator with cheat abilities is sent to compensate for the god's error. Anna recalls her own past mistakes, a bead of sweat on her brow. Hagen continues reading the report on Tenma's case, his expression thoughtful. He notes that Tenma's new world is comparatively stable, making his summoning a mystery. Anna stands patiently by his desk, her heels clicking softly on the floor. She asks how he can be so sure of the world's stability. He explains the bureaucratic process. Applications are routed through a management bureau. If the bureau deems the situation non-urgent, the request is put on backlog. Anna understands now, watching as Hagen finishes assembling his pistol. She wonders aloud why Tenma was specifically summoned to that particular world. Hagen quietly agrees, his gaze fixed on the weapon he is cleaning. He finishes his work, placing the pistol on his desk, and agrees. He concludes there must be a profound reason for it, beyond their comprehension. In his new world, Tenma resides in a small, peaceful cabin. A simple door stands in the yard, leading to his private pocket dimension. Inside, Gale lets out a massive sneeze, startling itself. Tenma asks if it has a cold, but Gale suspects someone is gossiping. The AI's expression turns serious as it prepares to review the mission details. It outlines the official objective. Tenma and Zoratan must find the merchant Solon. However, Gale reveals that there is a secret underlying condition to Tenma's mission. Tenma is shocked to hear about a hidden objective he was unaware of. The plot is to have the village elder and Ujo try to oust Tenma. They plan to use their powerful subordinate, Zoratan, to eliminate him during the search. Tenma listens silently, a grim expression on his face as he processes this. And then, Gale continues, gesturing for Tenma to pay close attention. It unveils a massive presentation board filled with charts, graphs, and complex data. Tenma looks on, a bead of sweat running down his face, overwhelmed. The data shows that deforestation is causing a boom in the horned rabbit population. Tenma is stunned to see the problem laid out so clearly in numbers. Gale asks what he thinks will happen next with this rabbit population explosion. The dreadful implication dawns on Tenma's face as he stammers in realization. Gale confirms his fears. Stronger monsters will be drawn to the area. That's even worse, Tenma panics, but Gale insists there's more bad news. It explains there is one final, subtle, but ultimately fatal problem facing them. The village's salt reserves are nearly gone, and people cannot live without salt. Tenma sits in stunned silence, the weight of the situation crashing down on him. He thinks of the villagers at the well, their only source of water. Gale explains the village simply grew too fast, creating a host of problems. It then chides Tenma for being too kind, only ever seeing the good. Gale crosses its arms, stating it's the only one aware of everything. Or perhaps it muses, there might be one other person who understands. Really, Tenma asks, to which Gale can only reply, who knows? He feels crushed, seeing so many goals but no clear path to victory. He feels like he is in a game with far too many objectives. He looks at his hand holding only two cards, Zuratan and Gale. He sees the faces of Ranga, Sasha, and May, all cheering for him. He wants to save everyone, but fears this might be an impossible game. A single word from the darkness cuts through his despair. Tenma. Gale holds up a thick, meticulously prepared report, telling him not to worry. It instructs him to memorize the contents of the detailed plan it has created. Tenma takes the report, his expression a mixture of surprise and hope. His resolve hardens as he says he understands and is counting on Gale. Gale gives a confident thumbs up, its plan now officially in motion. It believes if Tenma follows the plan, the village will overcome every crisis. And as a bonus, they can deal with the greedy elder and his son. The villains are oblivious, thinking of their own schemes, unaware of Tenma's counterattack. Inside the pocket dimension, Gale admits that swaying the village elder is an impossible game. Tenma chuckles, agreeing that this particular challenge is of the highest difficulty. His expression suddenly shifts to one of intense focus as he senses something outside. He tells Gale that someone is approaching, much earlier than is usual for the morning. Peering out, he sees a hooded figure with a lantern, realizing it's not who he expected. A wave of panic hits Tenma. He must leave now or risk his secret being discovered. Gale gives him a note with instructions, urging him to read it. Tenma quickly agrees. The scene shifts to an exterior view of the humble barn and house in the village. A soft knock sounds on the barn door as Sasha, the visitor, calls out for Tenma. A hand grips a wooden post, readying for a powerful swing. Misha's face is a mask of pure concentration as she trains alone in the forest. Sasha's hand reaches for the doorknob to Tenma's temporary home. The quiet of the forest is shattered by a loud, heavy cracking sound. A transitional panel shows a vast, empty landscape under a pale sky. Misha completes her sword practice, counting out her 100th disciplined strike. A massive axe blade bites into the earth with a sharp metallic clang. A deafening crash erupts behind Misha, startling her mid-stance. She whirls around in alarm, wondering what could have made such a noise. The intimidating figure of Zuratan looms nearby, his heavy axe held at the ready. He swings the axe in a powerful, whistling arc, aimed at Misha's training dummy. The axe connects with devastating force, the cartoonish dummy offering no resistance. The dummy's crudely drawn face is instantly split in two by the incredible blow. Misha watches in utter shock, a gasp of terror escaping her lips. The training dummy explodes into a shower of wooden splinters under the immense force. A close-up shows Misha's horrified expression as debris flies past her face. Realizing the danger, she sprints through the woods, thinking she must warn Tenma. The elder praises Zuratan, remarking that his power has grown even stronger. Zuratan stands impassively as the elder kicks at the ground in frustration. Misha races back to the village, hearing muffled voices coming from inside the barn. She peeks around the corner, her expression one of pure confusion. Inside, she sees her older sister Sasha in a quiet conversation with Tenma. Tenma looks completely flustered, his eyes wide with surprise at Sasha's words. Misha hides behind a low stone wall, trying to understand the scene before her. She wonders why Tenma seems so shocked and what her sister could possibly be saying. Unsure of what to do, she remains hidden, paralyzed by confusion. Tenma's adventurer's pack sits on the floor, ready for the journey ahead. Tenma and Zuratan depart, heading into the wilderness as a squirrel watches them go. As they walk, Tenma's expression is distant and preoccupied, lost in thought. He continues to puzzle over the bizarre conversation he had earlier that morning. He flashes back to the moment Sasha appeared at the barn door. She had asked him to marry Misha and make the village his permanent home. The memory brings back his expression of pure, comical, sweat-drenched shock. Sasha had then quickly apologized for being so sudden and surprising. She had simply asked him to return safely so they could discuss it further. The flashback ends with Tenma standing dumbfounded in the barn after she left. Back in the present, he and Zorotan continue their trek through the dense forest. His thoughts drift to Misha, acknowledging her cute and hardworking nature. He recalls her determined expression, her inner fire always burning. His mind becomes completely captivated by the thought of her magnificent, fluffy tail. He blushes, unable to get the image of her wonderful tail out of his head. Suddenly, something bounces off his head, and he lets out a yelp of surprise. He turns to Zorotan, asking what that was all about. The stoic giant gruffly announces that it is time for their lunch break. Tenma lets out a quiet sigh, snapping back to the reality of their mission. They find a suitable clearing, with Zorotan noting it's a good place to stop. They lay out their provisions: simple bread, dried meat, and large leaves of lettuce. As they eat, they discuss the fact that Solan's wagon still hasn't been found. Tenma asks what kind of person the missing merchant, Solon, is. Zorotan pauses, considering the question as Tenma looks on expectantly. The large man pulls out a sketchbook, explaining that Solon is a serious individual. Tenma watches, intrigued, as Zorotan begins to draw with surprising delicacy. Zorotan adds that Solon was a reliable man who followed the elder's orders. A small sound of awe escapes Tenma as the image takes shape. The finished portrait is perfect. Tenma exclaims that Zorotan is an amazing artist. He studies the drawing, now having a clear idea of the man they are seeking. Tenma realizes the paintings in the elder's house must have been Zorotan's work. Zorotan then asks Tenma if he possesses a similar skill. He mentions Tenma's wood carving, noting how happy it made the village children. A brief, heartwarming memory shows the children playing with Tenma's handmade toys. Tenma gives a small, warm smile, remembering their joyful faces. He realizes that behind the intimidating facade, Zorotan is a truly kind person. Having bonded, they prepare to leave, Tenma checking if they have everything. A disembodied yes rings out from the forest as they get ready. The two companions continue their journey, adjusting their heavy packs. A montage shows their growing camaraderie through shared hardship and training. They sit together by a crackling campfire under the vast, starry night sky. They share skewers of roasted meat, a simple meal between newfound friends. At dawn, they stretch together, preparing for another day of travel. They pore over a large map, planning their route through the wilderness. By a waterfall, Zorotan points out a landmark, teaching Tenma how to navigate. While Tenma gathers firewood, Zorotan sits and sketches the landscape. The stoic warrior proudly shows Tenma a new, flattering portrait he drew of him. Tenma blushes, clearly delighted and surprised by his friend's artistic gift. He awakens one morning to see Zorotan sitting peacefully among forest creatures. The two stand silhouetted on a ridge at sunrise, surrounded by gentle wildlife. They even find time for fun, playing a game of tic-tac-toe on the map. During a sudden downpour, Tenma celebrates while Zorotan seeks shelter. The journey has clearly forged an unbreakable bond between the two unlikely allies. Tenma begins to hope that Gale's grim predictions of conflict might be wrong. He thinks they might resolve things peacefully, unaware of the sinister eyes above. A sudden, sharp movement catches his eye, and his expression instantly hardens. Zorotan senses the danger too, shouting Tenma's name as a warning. A tide of goblins leaps from the trees, swarming down upon them. In an instant, they are completely surrounded by the chittering, snarling horde. They stand back to back as Zorotan grimly confirms they are encircled. A close-up of Zorotan's face shows his grim resolve, ready for battle. Tenma's face breaks into a wry, confident grin. Gale's prediction was right. An overhead view reveals the staggering number of goblins trapping them. The monstrous creatures press closer, their grotesque faces filled with malice. Zorotan identifies the goblin horde as Tenma confirms their dire situation. A horde of snarling goblins bursts forth from the dense forest tree line. Tenma and Zorotan are instantly surrounded by a sea of monstrous silhouettes. The sheer size of the goblin swarm is overwhelming, a writhing, chaotic mass. The two companions stand back to back, preparing for the inevitable, desperate fight. Tenma notes the attack was expected, but the number of foes is alarming. He thinks to himself that if he were fighting alone, this would be manageable. A bead of sweat rolls down his temple as he focuses on the battle. Gale had explained their strategy: deliberately allow themselves to be ambushed. Tenma's sharp eyes spot a goblin archer taking aim from a high branch. The archer draws its bow, its crude arrow pointed directly at the pair. With a practiced flick of his thumb, Tenma sends a small stone flying. The stone strikes the goblin squarely in the head, knocking it from the tree. Tenma identifies an abnormal outbreak of monsters composed of two vicious types. He realizes they are goblins and orcs, making it hard to protect Zorotan unnoticed. He laments how much simpler the fight would be without having to protect anyone. The pressure of the overwhelming odds shows on his tense face. Zorotan spots two more archers preparing to fire from the tall grass. Tenma knows if the goblins strike first, they must be defeated immediately. Zorotan's heavy boot kicks a loose stone from the path with incredible force. The stone flies like a bullet, a blur of motion past Tenma. It slams into one of the hidden archers, taking it out of the fight. The second archer is also struck down before it can release its arrow. Gritting his teeth, Tenma prepares to go on the offensive. He dives into the fray, a dark silhouette against the monstrous horde. His expression is one of pure focus as he prepares a defensive maneuver. He uses his heavy backpack as a shield, slamming it into an attacking goblin. He then tosses the pack aside, creating a small opening in the chaos. With a swift move, he disarms a goblin, its swords clattering to the ground. He quickly scoops up one of the fallen blades, ready to use it. He glances over his shoulder, a bead of sweat tracing his jawline. Zorotan asks if he is all right, and Tenma gives a startled but affirmative reply. The giant then asks if Tenma has noticed what he's been doing. Zorotan realizes that Tenma has been skillfully flicking stones with his fingers. He deduces Tenma prepared stones and is resupplying them from his item box. A faint, impressed smile forms on Zorotan's lips as he thinks how clever Tenma is. The two fight in perfect unison, a whirlwind of coordinated destruction. The goblins rally, their attacks suddenly becoming more organized and dangerous. Zorotan grunts in pain as a powerful blow lands squarely on him. He staggers backward, the force of the attack momentarily breaking his guard. A larger, more powerful goblin leader emerges, directing its troops. Tenma realizes with a jolt that the boss has finally made its appearance. Zorotan is stunned by the force of the blow, leaving Tenma momentarily exposed. The goblin leader gives a sharp command, ordering its forces to withdraw. It tells its troops to grab the valuable items they can see and retreat. The goblins cheer as they manage to seize Zorotan's massive axe. They celebrate their prize, hauling away the axe and a bottle Tenma dropped. Their retreat is slow and deliberate, all part of a larger, unseen plan. The scene fades to black, marking a shift in the chaotic battle. Several goblins struggle together, weighed down by the heavy, captured axe. A lone goblin watches from a cliff top as the main force disappears. Tenma explains to Zorotan that their plan worked. The heavy loot slowed the goblins. Zorotan silently takes a drink from a bottle, processing Tenma's words. He wraps a heavy cloak around his shoulders and tells Tenma it's time to move. Tenma calls out for his large companion to wait for a moment. Zorotan suggests they track the goblins to their camp and then annihilate them. His face is a mask of grim determination, his mind already set. Tenma argues that his own agility makes him better suited for tracking alone. A goblin thinks that if only one can survive, they can warn the village. Zorotan's jaw sets, a silent refusal of Tenma's suggestion. Tenma insists Zorotan is more trusted and should be the one to warn the village. Zorotan firmly rejects the idea, his stance unwavering. He insists that one person cannot succeed and two are needed for a safe escape. He warns that it would be disastrous if the goblins discovered their campsite. Tenma worries that Zorotan seeing the full extent of his plan would be a problem. Zorotan declares he will not allow another victim like the merchant Solon. They find the wreckage of a wagon and a discarded dagger in the dirt. Tenma points to the dagger, asking Zorotan if he had noticed it. The giant's hand clenches into a tight, resolute fist at the sight. A flashback shows Gale warning Tenma to never reveal his plans to Zorotan. Tenma calls Zorotan over, telling him he has something important to show him. He presents a corked bottle, his expression serious and deeply focused. Kneeling before the giant, he explains that this bottle is his trump card. He reveals that the contents of the bottle hold a crucial secret. The camera focuses on the rough texture of Zorotan's heavy cloak. Inside the bottle, a tightly rolled piece of paper can be seen. This paper contains a hidden message, the key to their entire plan. The bottle is sealed with a simple, tight-fitting cork. Back in the village, Sasha gives a playful wink as she polishes an ornate bottle. She carefully places the bottle back on its tray at the family shrine. With her hands on her hips, she declares that everything is now ready. She turns to her younger sister, Misha, and warmly calls out her name. Sasha asks Misha if she clearly relayed her earlier message to Tenma. Misha confirms she did, recalling her incredibly awkward attempt at matchmaking. A memory of Tenma's utterly bewildered expression flashes in her mind. She admits he didn't take it seriously, and she's worried for his safety. Sasha sits at the table, her fluffy foxtail swishing gently behind her. She reassures Misha that everything will be fine since they were warned in advance. Misha hangs her head, still looking concerned despite her sister's confidence. Sasha puts a thoughtful finger to her chin, a playful idea lighting up her eyes. She asks Misha what she truly thinks about Tenma as a person. With a radiant, blushing smile, Sasha asks if Misha thinks marrying him is a good idea. Misha is utterly stunned by the suggestion, exclaiming in shocked disbelief. The two sisters sit opposite each other, the momentous question hanging in the air. Later, Misha sits alone by the window, contemplating her sister's words. Sasha and her youngest daughter, May, happily release a pair of butterflies. The two delicate butterflies flutter gracefully on the breeze. They fly back into the room, circling around Sasha as she smiles. One of the butterflies lands gently on the tip of Misha's fox-like ear. Misha jumps in a flustered panic, asking Sasha why she is doing this. Sasha simply smiles, saying she thinks Misha and Tenma would make a good couple. Misha's face flushed a brilliant red, her mind reeling in utter confusion. Memories of Tenma's kindness and competence flashed through her mind, overwhelming her. Sasha gently told her flustered daughter that this was a good thing. With a warm smile, she promised to give Misha her full support. Sasha observed that Tenma, while capable, was awkward with personal relationships. She felt a boy like him was better off here than alone. His small village would be a better start for him than anywhere else. The soft patter of small bare feet sounded on the wooden floor. Little May peeked around the door, calling out for her sister Misha. She innocently asked if her big brother Tenma had come home yet. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the quiet landscape. Tenma moved cautiously through the tall grass, his boots making little sound. He traveled alone through the deep woods, cloaked and on high alert. Peeking from behind a tree, his expression was anxious and uncertain. He discovered the smoldering, destroyed remains of a merchant's camp. His eyes widened in shock as he took in the horrific scene. A human skeleton was propped against the wreckage of a wagon. Pinned nearby was a tattered drawing of a man with his family. Tenma's mind flashed to a vision of crude, jeering goblins celebrating. From a nearby fortification, the sounds of their revelry could be heard. His hand tightened on the hilt of his dagger, his knuckles white. His face became a mask of cold fury, his teeth gritted. He stopped himself, realizing he couldn't afford to become emotional now. He used a calming breathing technique from his old gamer days. A memory of grinding in a game helped him regain his composure. Now calm and focused, he was ready to execute his plan. From a high vantage point, he surveyed the goblin camp's layout. He pulled a dark corked bottle from beneath his cloak. Taking aim, he prepared to unleash the bottle's contents on the camp. A powerful stream of liquid shot across the clearing, startling the monsters. The goblins erupted in a chorus of panicked, confused screams. Absolute chaos broke out as the potent scent filled the air. A curious goblin squatted down to inspect the strange, dark puddle. After one taste, its eyes rolled back in a fit of ecstasy. Tenma knew the mixture would make the goblins lose all rational thought. One goblin held the bottle aloft in a drunken toast to the moon. But Tenma's true goal was to use the scent to summon predators. A pack of massive wolves appeared, leaping down from the high cliffs. They descended upon the camp like a furry white and black avalanche. The goblins' drunken glee instantly turned to shrieking, abject terror. "They're here! Silver wolves!" Tenma exclaimed as his plan unfolded. The wolves tore into the goblin horde with savage, bloody efficiency. Tenma watched the brutal display, a bead of sweat on his brow. The goblins screamed in terror, completely outmatched by the ferocious beasts. A wolf's jaws clamped down on a goblin, its eyes merciless. The alpha wolf threw its head back and let out a victorious howl. One of the wolves playfully batted at a fallen goblin's corpse. A massive, blood-splattered paw rested atop a pile of the slain. Tenma was awestruck, realizing their power was on a different level. The victorious pack began to retreat into the darkness of their den. Zurtan emerged from the shadows, asking if the battle was finally over. He stood at the mouth of a cave, his hands empty. Suddenly, he brandished his twin axes, his expression grim and intimidating. He tightened his grip on the heavy weapons, preparing for a fight. He warned Tenma not to think badly of him for what came next. Tenma quickly summoned a portal to his pocket dimension to escape. He burst into the room, shouting to Gale that they were in trouble. Gale calmly told the frantic Tenma to settle down and report. Tenma gestured wildly, trying to convey the gravity of the situation. Gale, puffing a pipe, calmly told him to start from the beginning. Tenma clasped his hands together, pleading for Gale to understand. Gale broke into a sweat, finally exclaiming that this was indeed bad. The Dolphin AI comically split in two from the sheer stress. Tenma tried to continue, but Gale held up a fin to stop him. He referred to the mission checklist they had prepared earlier. Tenma reported that the goblin horde had been successfully annihilated. Gale nodded pensively, acknowledging that part of the mission was a success. He crossed off the first two objectives on their handwritten list. However, Gale said, indicating a serious new problem had arisen, the Silver Wolves were an unforeseen consequence of his potent lure. Tenma sat on the couch, ready to debrief the new situation. He admitted that Zurtan was far more capable than he had expected. Tenma believed he could reason with Zurtan, but Gale seemed unconvinced. Gale threw a cracker at Tenma, scolding him for his naive optimism. He asked if Tenma truly believed talking would solve the problem. A wise enemy who understands you is the most dangerous kind, Gale explained. Tenma looked on, confused by Gale's sudden, grim analysis. Gale described Zurtan as a man who executes orders with cold precision. Tenma realized Gale was right, but he was still deeply conflicted. He clenched his fists, declaring he did not want to fight Zurtan. He looked down, troubled, wondering what he could possibly do now. Gale listened patiently as Tenma wrestled with his dilemma. Tenma, Gale announced with sudden confidence, I have a plan. He explained that Zurtan's greatest weakness was his loyalty to the Elder. Tenma's eyes widened in shock at this unexpected revelation. The scene shifts to a peaceful homestead in the quiet village. A beastman guard stood watch outside a small bathhouse. Inside, Misha was helping her little sister May take a bath. Misha commented on how much May seemed to love her bath toy. May hugged the small wooden carving, exclaiming that she loved it. Misha watched her sister, a thoughtful expression on her face. She quietly asked May if she wanted Tenma to stay with them. May crossed her arms and gave a firm, decisive nod. Misha was surprised by her sister's unexpectedly strong opinion. May said that Tenma was amazing and must have had people who liked him before. Misha gently continued to wash her younger sister's back with a sponge. May felt it wouldn't be right for her to monopolize his time, but she would be happy if he could visit the village sometimes. Misha, touched in surprise, dropped the soap into the water. Outside, Ranga shouted an apology that the merchant still hadn't arrived. In the steam of the bath, Misha lets out a warm, contented sigh. She reflects on her younger sister, thinking May has become quite mature. Her thoughts turn to Tenma, who always considers the needs of others. Misha feels a pang of shame over her own childish adventuring dreams. Big sister? May's voice calls out, breaking Misha's introspective mood. Outside, their mother Sasha wraps a towel around the small, freshly bathed May. May points with excitement, telling her mother she's watching from outside. Suddenly, a furious shout cuts through the peaceful village air. A heavy boot stomps hard on the grassy ground with great force. Ranga charges into view, staff ready, demanding to know who dares trespass. His expression of pure rage quickly melts into one of utter confusion. He finds not an intruder, but small goats stacked up to see in the window. One of the little goats turns its head and lets out a happy bleat. Ranga sighs with relief, realizing it was just the animals causing a commotion. Watching from a distance, Misha tells May that the goats are climbing up. The sight is so amusing that May covers her mouth to stifle a giggle. The goats abandon the window and begin playfully swarming a flustered Ranga. Seeing their father's predicament, both sisters burst into helpless laughter. Misha's laughter fades, replaced by a look of quiet concern. She gazes toward the distant mountains, wondering how Tenma is faring. Her thoughts drift far beyond the village, filled with worry for him. Deep in the woods, a cornered Tenma faces the imposing figure of Zurtan. Tenma pants heavily, sweat beading on his face from sheer exhaustion. Zurtan raises his twin axes, his form a dark and threatening silhouette. With a mighty crash, the axes slam into the earth, sending debris flying. Zurtan stands amidst the carnage, having easily felled several large logs. He spots Tenma, who has sought refuge high up in a tree's branches. Tenma catches his breath, looking down warily from his temporary sanctuary. He tightens the grip on his own small axe, preparing for the next move. The scene flashes back to the plan hatched the previous night. Tenma recalls running through a rocky pass, Gale's instructions in his mind. He remembers the objective: to convince Zurtan they must save the village. The script was precise, meant to appeal to Zurtan's loyalty to the Elder. Tenma had felt confident, believing the careful plan would surely succeed. He had put away his notes, ready to enact the crucial negotiation. He had approached the warrior from behind, calling out his name. Tenma reports that the goblins are defeated and he has a message. He calls out to Zurtan again, but the warrior remains ominously silent. A dangerous glint in his eye tells Tenma something has gone terribly wrong. Zurtan suddenly kicks off the ground, lunging forward with shocking speed. He swings his axe wildly, forcing Tenma to leap away from the blow. The two of them sprint down a steep, rocky hill in a desperate chase. Tenma is stunned that Gale's prediction could have failed so completely. He plants his foot, realizing he must try a different tactic. He hurls his own axe, hoping to disarm his relentless pursuer. The small axe clangs uselessly against Zuratan's massive weapon. His weapon now lost, Tenma is left vulnerable in the hostile forest. He realizes the dense trees make it impossible to fight effectively here. A flash of movement from the side catches his immediate attention. An axe buries itself in the ground right beside his leg. Zuratan emerges from the shadows, his expression grim and unyielding. The masked warrior's face is a mask of cold, unwavering determination. Tenma flees through a maze of thick, gnarled tree roots. He is breathing in ragged gasps, the endless chase wearing him down. He realizes Zuratan is strategically herding him into this disadvantageous terrain. He sees his opponent in the distance, confirming the warrior is truly serious. Tenma pants, wondering just how many hours this desperate fight has lasted. His perception skill detects Zuratan's presence, which then suddenly vanishes. He looks around in confusion, wondering where the warrior could have gone. A massive shadow falls over him as Zuratan ambushes him from behind. Tenma nimbly dodges the attack, giving a quick, reassuring thumbs up. His brave facade crumbles as the reality of his peril sets in. He spots small, identical stones scattered across the forest floor. He knows his usual thrown projectiles will not work against this opponent. Zuratan leaps into the air, preparing to bring both axes down. A terrible thought strikes Tenma. Something must be wrong at the village. He knows saving the village is impossible without first defeating Zuratan. A painful memory surfaces of his old boss callously firing him. He recalls the crushing shame of being abandoned and deemed useless. He sees his past defeated self staring at his current, reincarnated form. His new self stares back with eyes full of unwavering determination. Back in the present, he is startled to find Zuratan has vanished again. A sharp pain reminds him of his fatigue and the severity of the fight. He plants his foot firmly on the ground, deciding to retreat no further. Zuratan charges again, his axe is a blur of destructive motion. The massive warrior barrels forward, an unstoppable force of nature. His axes lie on the ground, steaming in the cool, damp air. Tenma stands his ground in a clearing, awaiting his opponent's next move. He declares with conviction that he refuses to give up on Zuratan. A single heavy drop of rain falls from a leaf overhead. The sky opens up and a downpour begins to soak the two combatants. Zuratan tells him that his chance of winning vanished when he entered the forest. He vows that Tenma will not be leaving this place unharmed. Zuratan unleashes a powerful strike, the force of it creating a shockwave. The impact causes a massive explosion of water and debris in the distance. Both warriors are thrown backward by the sheer force of the blow. Tenma lands hard, clutching a fresh, bloody wound on his arm. Zuratan stumbles back, momentarily dazed but still on his feet. Clutching his injured arm, Tenma scrambles away to find cover. Gale's voice echoes in his mind, comparing Zuratan to an enraged grizzly. He knows he cannot stop this beast with the few projectiles he has. Two small horned rabbits watch the terrifying battle with panicked eyes. In this forest without guns, Zuratan is the strongest creature alive. A series of explosions rocks the landscape as their fight rages on. Zuratan leaps down a steep cliff, continuing his relentless pursuit. He has realized Tenma possesses a combat ability far beyond his appearance. His axes spin through the air, a whirlwind of deadly polished steel. He knows Tenma isn't just skilled, but also the cleverest man he's met. He dodges a spray of projectiles, his expression one of pure shock. He examines the identical stones in his hand, an impossible, baffling anomaly. Zuratan realizes Tenma's compassion is not a strength, but a mysterious weakness. He knows it's a fatal flaw he can exploit to win. If he can just strike at that weakness, he can defeat him. Tenma, hiding, takes a deep breath, counting down his last reserves. He reaches 20, his mind made up. It is time to act. A pained look crosses his face as he prepares for his final move. He thinks he'll be caught soon, but he cannot give up on Zuratan. Thinking of Solon, he resolves to end their fight in a single blow. Zuratan hears a sudden noise from the canopy above, startling birds into flight. A dark shape plummets from the trees with incredible speed. Tenma leaps from his hiding spot behind the massive gnarled tree. He screams that this attack carries the weight of his 48 years of life. A bottle flies through the air, a final desperate gambit. The forest is a blur as the projectile hurtles towards its target. Zuratan stands stunned in the aftermath of the powerful impact. The massive warrior, holding his axe, surveys the damage. In a flash, he catches a small ornate dagger from midair. He recognizes it instantly as the one that belonged to Solon. He realizes with a jolt that Tenma deliberately made him miss the blow. A wave of shock washes over his face as the truth dawns on him. A memory flashes of Solon, his family, and his own promise. He cannot bring himself to create another victim, another tragedy. A single tear falls from his eye, landing silently on the dagger's blade. An earth-shaking sound echoes as he drops his axe to the ground. The dagger clatters beside it, his will to fight completely gone. "I've lost," he roars, demanding Tenma explain his true intentions. Tenma looks up at a sliver of sunlight breaking through the trees. A small, exhausted but relieved smile touches his lips. In the agency, Hayes yells, "Hey, Hagen!" from across the corporate hall. He accuses Hagen of punishing him with a transfer to new client development. Hagen turns a cool, calculating expression on his face. He explains that new client development is an important, high-stakes position. Hayes fumes that making him do such menial work is a loss for the company. Hagen calmly watches his rival's tantrum from a slight distance. Hayes shouts that if it's for next term, he'll think about it then. Hagen looks up thoughtfully, a new plan beginning to form in his mind. He muses that their business partners are not mere clients, but immortal gods. He recalls how others, blinded by greed, failed to grasp this simple fact. Their true profits, he explains, must be maximized for the long term. He asserts that building mutually beneficial relationships is the only path to success. Hayes scoffs, telling him not to worry about such trivial matters. Hagen reveals that handling foolish superiors is an unofficial part of his job. Hayes drops his box of belongings with a frustrated thud. He curses under his breath as Hagen watches him, completely unfazed. Hagen walks alone down the sterile corridor, his victory secured. He wonders about the true meaning behind Tenma's summons to that world. Anna rushes up to him, calling out, "Section Chief Hagen!" She breathlessly reports that an inquiry has arrived from Tenma's client. She holds up her tablet, showing an incoming communication request. The call is from none other than the goddess Terra herself. Anna panics, crying out, "Chief, what are we going to do?" Hagen realizes it's a direct inquiry from the client god herself. He knows that usually an angel or retainer would handle such matters. Anna says she heard about the situation from the contact window. She explains the final order from Hayes was rerouted to Hagen's desk. Hagen decides they must respond immediately and grabs his briefcase. He takes a deep, steadying breath, preparing for the divine confrontation. He lets out a long sigh, his face a mask of grim determination. His finger moves with purpose, pressing the button to accept the call. The call connects and the goddess's stoic classical icon appears before them. Her voice booms, declaring that she has waited quite long enough. Anna and Hagen bow deeply, offering their most sincere apologies. The goddess, however, says the reincarnator they sent was quite good. Hagen asks why she's calling, since their subordinate Gale was handling things. The goddess states that she wants them to speak with Gale directly. "Wait, goddess!" Anna stammers, completely shocked by the sudden command. The world around them dissolves into a swirling, chaotic void of clouds. Anna cries out in terror as Hagen tells her to calm herself. A great rumbling shakes their floating platform, stunning them into silence. A colossal shape emerges from the clouds, a massive armed orca. "What is that?" Hagen shouts, his professional composure finally cracking. The being introduces itself as the orca god, Gale, who guided Tenma. Hagen looks up, sweat beading on his brow at the impossible sight. He formally introduces himself and a kneeling Anna, asking Gale's purpose. The orca god has only one question. Why was Tenma's tutorial so long? It stares down at Hagen, its ancient eyes demanding an answer. Hagen looks down, a bead of sweat tracing a path down his temple. He looks up, his expression one of grim acceptance. He takes full responsibility, stating it was entirely their mistake. Anna frets that they have angered such a powerful, fearsome god. The orca god's blowhole spouts a small, almost gentle puff of air. It suddenly throws its head back and lets out a deafening, echoing laugh. Hagen is completely shocked by this unexpected, terrifying reaction. Anna lets out a small shriek, her composure completely shattered. "My apologies," the god rumbles, its laughter subsiding. It speaks in a strange, ancient language, its tone amused. The strange, rumbling words seem to fill the entire void. Well, it seems to say its amusement clear. It explains that it was just as it thought, and it will take responsibility. Hagen is utterly confused by the god's strange offer to take the blame. Gale clarifies that it has no intention of filing a complaint. The outcome was good. Anna is visibly relieved, her body slumping with the release of tension. "Oh, thank goodness," she whispers, clutching her tablet. Hagen states that he cannot allow the god to interfere in their judgment. He asks if he might ask one final question, and the god agrees. He asks the orca god what its relationship is to Tenma. In his dimension, Gale ponders the question, knowing their bond is like family. The Orca god makes its grand declaration, Tenma and it are brothers. Hagen and Anna are left completely speechless, their minds reeling. Back in his room, Gale's small dolphin form chuckles softly to itself. The great Orca god, Gale, grins menacingly, proclaiming himself to be an older brother. This divine declaration leaves director Hagen and Anna completely and utterly speechless. Hagen, recovering slightly, whirls on Anna, demanding to know if this is true. Anna stammers, unable to process the idea of Tenma and a god being brothers. Her mind finally snaps under the pressure, wondering what is even happening anymore. She collapses from the overwhelming shock as a concerned Hagen calls out her name. In the deep, dark woods, the threatening growls of silver wolves fill the air. A furious alpha wolf clamps its powerful jaws onto Tenma's bandaged forearm. The wolf's sharp claws dig in as it bites down with punishing force. At their small campfire, Tenma and Zuratan find themselves surrounded by the pack. Tenma explodes with power, sending the massive alpha wolf flying through the air. The wolf lands with a heavy thud, dazed and whimpering from the blow. Tenma grabs the alpha by its scruff, asserting his dominance over the beast. He explains to Zuratan that wolves, unlike goblins, do not kill for sport. Zuratan listens to Tenma's reasoning with a serious, thoughtful expression. Tenma believes that if he drives the pack away, they will not return. The alpha wolf lets out another low growl, its eyes still full of defiance. Zuratan offers pieces of meat to the pack, attempting to calm them down. A wolf snaps at Tenma's hand as he tries to pat its head. Tenma is shocked by the wolf's strength, feeling himself being dragged down. He clenches his fist, preparing for one final, decisive show of force. With a grunt, he lifts the massive wolf and the meat it was guarding. In a great heave, he throws both the wolf and its prize into the air. The alpha wolf tumbles helplessly, its dominance completely shattered. Tenma watches with a determined gaze, his new authority now firmly established. He stands at the cliff's edge as the defeated wolf plummets towards the river. Another wolf whimpers, seeing the prize meat fall away with its leader. The alpha splashes into the dark river below, its defeat now absolute. Zuratan calmly pats the haunch of meat, the rest of the pack now subdued. Tenma informs the pack that their boss has fallen, and they whimper in reply. The alpha emerges from the water, licking its lips in a sign of submission. It lets out a long, powerful howl, a command to the rest of its pack. Tenma and Zuratan watch as the other wolves respond to their leader's call. The mournful howl echoes from the forest below as the two men observe. The silver wolves gather, their aggressive posture gone, preparing to leave. As one, the pack turns and begins to move, following their defeated alpha. They leap past Tenma and Zuratan, beginning their mass exodus from the area. The wolves expertly navigate the steep rocky terrain as they depart. One by one, they leap from the high cliff into the rushing river below. The pack swims away, their forms fading into the dark, churning water. Tenma and Zuratan stand alone on the cliff, the immediate threat finally gone. Zuratan stretches his arms, relieved that the tense standoff is finally over. He believes they'll survive downstream, and Tenma is glad they weren't killed. Zuratan gives Tenma a look of deep respect, a slight smile on his face. Tenma looks back, a little flustered by the stoic warrior's quiet approval. They seal their newfound bond of respect with a solid, resounding fist bump. Their fists part, two sparks signifying their camaraderie against the dark night. A pair of determined eyes glow in the darkness, focused on the future. The heavy wooden wheel of a wagon rumbles down a dusty rural path. Zuratan and Tenma pull the recovered merchant's wagon through a sunlit forest. Tenma apologizes for the heavy load, but Zuratan insists it's his job. Zuratan gives Tenma a friendly pat, causing the boy to blush slightly. His expression turns grim as he thinks about the merchant, Solon's disappearance. With the immediate monster threats gone, all that remains is the journey home. Zurtan's face is serious. He knows their real problems are far from over. He warns Tenma that returning to the village will present a host of challenges. He explains the village is critically low on both water and salt supplies. Tenma listens with concern, his hand to his chin as he processes the news. He visualizes the village's supply chain collapsing, with fuel also running out. The village's rapid growth means it will become unsustainable in about 5 years. Tenma is visibly shocked by this dire but logical assessment of the future. He apologizes for the grim outlook, but Zuratan corrects him. It's only 3 years. From what he has observed, Zuratan is certain they only have 3 years left. Tenma is stunned into silence, realizing the situation is worse than he imagined. They continue their journey, the weight of the village's fate on their shoulders. Tenma sits in the wagon, carefully studying the detailed plans prepared by Gale. He suggests radical solutions like digging a new well or moving the village. Tenma takes a sip from his bottle while waiting for Zuratan's response. Zuratan dismisses the ideas, stating that the village elder would never allow it. Tenma realizes that any plan the elder dislikes is simply impossible to enact. The elder's first act was securing the well, a right he will never relinquish. Tenma closes his eyes in thought, certain there must be some other way. By the campfire, the two discuss the complex politics of the small village. Tenma despairs, feeling any plan is useless against the elder and his son. Zuratan feels he cannot betray the elder who took him in, despite his flaws. Zuratan eats his meal while Tenma watches, his mind racing for a solution. Tenma understands, recalling the powerlessness he felt in his previous life. He knows that even with Gale's wisdom, convincing Zuratan will be difficult. He sits on a log by the fire, contemplating the village's bleak future. Zuratan continues to eat, listening patiently as Tenma thinks out loud. He says he understands the elder's feelings for the village he built himself. Tenma proposes a new system, dividing the elder's authority and profits. Zuratan turns, completely baffled by this complex and unheard-of political idea. Tenma worries he said something strange, that it wasn't one of Gale's plans. He panics internally, wondering what kind of crazy plan he just came up with. He recalls his past life, where his ideas were dismissed as naive and useless. Zuratan, now intrigued, asks Tenma to explain his idea in more detail. Tenma is flustered, surprised that the stoic warrior is actually listening to him. He nervously begins to explain the details of his governance proposal to Zuratan. The elder's status would be guaranteed, but authority would be delegated to others. Zuratan listens intently, his face silhouetted in the firelight as he thinks. He clarifies, responsibility is divided, but the elder keeps the profits. He takes a slow sip from his wooden cup, asking if he understands correctly. Tenma beams, excitedly confirming that Zuratan has grasped the core concept. He praises Zuratan for understanding the idea so clearly and quickly. Zuratan admits Tenma's idea is novel, but thinks it could persuade the elder. He holds his cup, pausing as he considers the final, most difficult obstacle. He states there is still one more wall, the elder's greedy son, Ujio. The sound of bustling activity can be heard near the village gate. Misha, holding a bouquet of flowers, walks through the village, unaware of the storm to come. A young boy nervously tells his friend about the scary people he overheard. His friend's sister May stares back with wide, terrified eyes. She dashes home, screaming a warning for her older sister Misha. Bursting inside, she joyfully announces that their big brother Tenma is back. In a daydream, Misha is flustered by her sister's questions about wedding clothes. Misha blushes deeply, her thoughts consumed by the sudden return of Tenma. Far away, a lone-covered wagon makes its way over rolling green hills. Tenma reassures Zuratan that they will be arriving at the village very soon. Zuratan plans to report to the elder and present Tenma's new village plan. Tenma quietly worries, hoping nothing terrible has befallen the villagers in their absence. Zuratan feels hopeful, believing Tenma's plan can save their dying community. He places a heavy, grateful hand on Tenma's shoulder, thanking him sincerely. Tenma looks back with a small, confident smile, ready for the challenge. As they near the gate, Zuratan predicts Ujio will be their main obstacle. They both stop, their expressions shifting to concern as they sense trouble. The harsh voice from the gate commands them to halt or be killed. A bald, thuggish-looking man glares down at them from a watchtower. Tenma asks about the man, but Zuratan can only shake his head grimly. Several pairs of heavy boots step out from behind a large supply crate. A group of 6 armed mercenaries stands before them, blocking the entrance. Tenma demands to know who they are and where Ranga's guard detail is. The bald man lets out a low, sinister chuckle at the question. He sneers, recognizing Tenma by name as his cronies gather behind him. Tenma stares back, his expression hardening with suspicion and resolve. The man declares it's a chief's order for them, especially the bear man, to leave. Elsewhere, Misha worries to herself that Tenma is taking too long to return. She peeks around a corner, calling his name as she sees the confrontation. Suddenly, a panicked Ranga appears, mistaking her for his wife, Sasha. He sighs in relief that it's only Misha, who looks back utterly confused. She asks about his guard duties, but he looks away, filled with shame. He mutters that he was fired, his voice trailing off into darkness. Misha now hides in a tree, watching the new mercenaries patrol the grounds. Her face is etched with worry as she observes the village's grim new reality. She realizes the guards are there specifically to keep Tenma from getting inside. One of the mercenaries pauses, thinking it would be bad if he were spotted. Misha steels herself, knowing that despite the danger, she must help Tenma. She perches atop the high wooden wall, catching the guard's attention. With a silent leap, she launches herself acrobatically from the palisade. The guard turns, his expression one of pure bewilderment at the sight. A small white rabbit rustles in the bushes nearby, startled by the noise. Misha lands upside down in the grass, dazed as the guard identifies the creature. With a powerful stomp, she rights herself and pushes off the ground. She sprints through the rain, determined to warn Tenma, who must be close. Peeking from the forest's edge, she sees the mercenaries confronting villagers. She recalls where Tenma would hide the wagon and runs toward the spot. Tenma and Zoroartan sit dejectedly by a tree, lamenting this terrible turn of events. Tenma hears his name being called and turns around in surprise. Misha arrives, panting for breath, relieved to see that they are both safe. Her face is smudged with dirt as she struggles to explain what has happened. She finally gets the words out, shouting that the village is in crisis. Zoroartan stares into the campfire, the grim reality of the situation dawning on him. Misha explains that the mercenaries were hired by Ujio and are running wild. She nods sadly, confirming the terrible truth of the village's occupation. She recounts how the villagers went to the chief's house to protest. A flashback shows them knocking on the door, pleading for someone to help them. The door opens to reveal an imposing figure blocking their path. Ujio sneers from the doorway that there's no food for poor people. The villagers demand to see the chief, but Ujio claims his father is sick. Inside, the elder and a mercenary feast, ignoring the pleas from outside. The villagers can only look on, their faces masks of disbelief and despair. Back at the campfire, Tenma listens to the story in stunned silence. Misha explains that Ranga was fired and sent to clear the forest. Zoroartan is shocked that the chief would order such a reckless thing. He grimly concludes that the situation is far worse than he imagined. He knows this unplanned deforestation will only enrage the forest creatures. Tenma quietly agrees, his own anger beginning to reach a boiling point. Zoroartan covers his face in despair, worried for the elder's health and judgment. Tenma stares into the flames, his expression hardening with cold resolve. The scene shifts to a flashback of a modern city at night. In a bar, a young man boasts about getting a TV job through family connections. A co-worker asks Tenma if he'll be joining them for the celebration. A yellow sign stands on a wet floor, indicating the restroom is being cleaned. A colleague complains about the privileged elites but praises Tenma's work ethic. She smiles, saying that even though it's frustrating, work is still work. A memory shows Tenma as a part-timer, happily serving his guildmates. Zoroartan clenches his fist, wondering why good, hard-working people must suffer so much. Tenma's face contorts in rage, tears of fury streaming down his cheeks. Zoroartan turns to Tenma, shocked by the raw intensity of his emotion. Misha also looks on, her expression filled with deep concern for him. The campfire crackles and flares, mirroring the burning anger in Tenma's soul. The logs in the fire burn brightly, a symbol of his unleashed fury. In Ronda, a thug tells his boss that the village's fate is not his concern. The boss declares that the village will soon belong to their employer. The true mastermind, Shamrock, muses that it will be a mutually beneficial deal. He orders his men to crush anyone who dares to interfere with their business. Shamrock smiles, confident in his cruel and meticulous plan for conquest. Surrounded by wine, he assures his men that they will undoubtedly succeed. His partner asks why he is being so cautious with this simple takeover. He reasons it's because their true client is a wealthy city merchant. He toasts, sneering that his own father will thank him for selling him out. Back in the village, the real elder groans pitifully in his sleep. He lies genuinely sick in bed, medicine resting on his nightstand. The bald mercenary Salon looks on with a grim, unreadable expression. Ujio, holding a glass of wine, asks Salon why he's making such a face. He lets out a loud, drunken yawn, utterly unconcerned by the situation. He slurs that his father is just sick, so what's the big deal? At the mercenaries' table, one of them turns to address Ujio. Shamrock asks about Zoroartan and the boy, noting they have returned too soon. Ujio is shocked into silence, his drunken confidence completely evaporating. He curses under his breath, realizing he has made a grave miscalculation. Within his secret dimension, Gale has a terrible nightmare, crying out that he is late. He runs towards a thundering waterfall, grumbling about being kept waiting for so long. Drenched and terrified, he calls out his friend's name in his sleep. Tenma! A monstrous orca erupts from the water, chasing him as he screams Tenma's name. Gale jolts awake in his room, sweating and clutching a scarf to his chest. Shaking off the dream, he immediately focuses on the documents laid out before him. His notes reveal his worry. He knows Ujio is far more vile than Tenma realizes. He stares at a map of the village, burdened by the complex and dangerous situation. Gnawing a cloth in frustration, he laments that the elder was always too soft on Ujio. A bottle of sports drink sits on the table, a small detail in his war room. He imagines a triumphant Ujio, fearing the pigman would even betray his own father. Gale knows Tenma's kind heart cannot comprehend the depths of a scoundrel like Ujio. Overwhelmed by his thoughts, he admits to himself that he is worrying far too much. A desperate thought crosses his mind as he wonders if he should just intervene himself. He envisions his true divine form descending upon a burning village in righteous fury. Snapping back to reality, he recoils from the horrifying vision, utterly shocked at himself. He paces frantically, reminding himself that he absolutely cannot interfere in mortal affairs directly. The divine law is clear. A god's appearance would irrevocably alter history for centuries. Peeking from behind a sofa, he feels powerless, asking himself what he could possibly do. He pauses, a new desperate idea beginning to take shape in his brilliant mind. He decides he is simply worrying as a good older brother would for his younger sibling. With a newfound sense of purpose, the small dolphin walks away from his desk. He resolves to act like a true older brother and put his complete faith in Tenma. Shaking a fist, he affectionately calls Tenma a troublesome but beloved little brother. He pauses for a moment, a silent, unspoken thought passing through his mind. His resolve is already wavering as his deep-seated anxiety begins to creep back in. His eyes narrow with terrifying resolve. If anything happens to Tenma, all bets are off. A hand-drawn map of the village shows the location of the impending conflict. The pioneer village sits peacefully in its clearing, unaware of the approaching storm. An angry villager shouts that if things continue like this, they will all be destroyed. Mercenaries block the path, stating that no matter what, they cannot enter the village. Solon, the mercenary leader, watches the confrontation unfold from a nearby window. The pigman Ujio crudely tells the desperate villagers to get lost and leave him alone. With a forceful shove, Ujio pushes Tenma back, asserting his newfound dominance. The villagers are driven back from the gate, which is now firmly under Ujio's control. Ujio smirks, taking a swig from a bottle, clearly enjoying his tyrannical power. Tenma clenches his fist, muttering Ujio's name with cold fury in his eyes. Ranga places a steadying hand on his shoulder, offering his silent support. The powerful wolfman looks up with grim determination, ready to defend his home. The villagers are now exiles, a crowd of silhouettes locked out of their own lives. Misha's family panics, worrying about Tenma and what will become of them now. Tenma takes a quiet moment to center himself, his expression hidden from view. A tall panel shows the vast, uncaring landscape surrounding the tense village. The simple village houses stand as silent witnesses to the unfolding drama. Misha resolutely puts on her adventuring gloves as her sister watches with concern. She tells her sister that she is going to find Tenma and help him. Manya calls out, trying to stop her younger sister from rushing into danger. She leans in close, whispering a final urgent instruction into Misha's ear. Misha is surprised but accepts the task, telling her sister to be careful. With a determined nod, she clutches the item her sister gave her and runs off. Manya watches her younger sister depart on her dangerous secret mission. The sky above the village is calm, belying the storm of conflict brewing below. The standoff at the village gate continues, a wagon and people waiting outside. A pair of worn boots stands firm in the grass, ready for the confrontation. The villagers' patience wears thin as they shout at the mercenaries to back down. Ranga stands like a shield before Tenma, protecting him from the aggressive thugs. A sharp shout cuts through the tense air, escalating the conflict toward violence. Ranga arrives carrying a massive log, demanding to know what the commotion is about. He is overjoyed to see his friends have returned safely from their perilous journey. A wide, relieved grin spreads across his face, glad that his comrades are unharmed. Tenma and Zortan look weary but relieved to be back with their friends. Ranga and his men stand their ground, facing off against the mercenary leader, Solon. Solon glares at the wolfman, recognizing him as one of the troublemakers. The mercenaries mock the villagers, claiming they are the true active adventurers here. Zortan's eyes narrow as he recognizes the wreckage of Solon's abandoned wagon. Ujio emerges to taunt them, offering to send them to an even more brutal worksite. Ranga roars back in defiance, declaring that Ujio has no such authority. Ujio sneers, confident in his position, and says he wonders about that. He triumphantly unfurls a document, declaring himself the acting chief with his father's signature. Ranga is left utterly speechless, stunned by the village elder's shocking betrayal. The mercenaries taunt Ranga and his friends, eager to start a fight with them. From a watchtower, the elder drinks heavily as his horrified family looks on. He stares into his bottle, completely lost in a drunken, selfish stupor. With a flick of his wrist, he carelessly tosses the empty bottle from the tower. The bottle shatters on the ground, the sound acting as the starting pistol for a brawl. With a furious battle cry, the villagers charge forward, the chaos finally erupting. Zuratan restrains Tenma, warning him not to get involved in the uneven fight. Tenma struggles, crying out that he can't just stand by and watch Ranga get hurt. Ranga takes a brutal punch to the face, the force of the blow staggering him. Zuratan winces, turning away, unable to bear the sight of his friends being beaten. The elder cackles from his perch, declaring how delicious the wine tastes amid the violence. The brawl rages below, a mercenary complaining that Ujio is making too much noise. From his post in the watchtower, another mercenary looks down, annoyed by the chaos. His face suddenly contorts in pure shock as he sees something impossible happening. He leans out the window, screaming in utter disbelief at the scene unfolding below. The drunken elder cheers on the fight, declaring that he, the acting chief, permits it. A sharp, sudden sound cuts through the air, silencing his drunken proclamation. The elder turns, his eyes wide with shock, realizing he is no longer alone. Below, the chaotic brawl grinds to a sudden, stunned halt as everyone looks up. Ranga and Tenma stare in disbelief, their eyes fixed on the watchtower. From the ground, all the villagers look up at the tower where the power has shifted. Misha holds a knife to the elder's throat, causing Ujio to cry out for his father. Ujio begins to panic, realizing his carefully constructed plan has just been shattered. Ranga lets out a long, shaky sigh of relief, his body slumping slightly. A small, triumphant smile plays on Tenma's lips. Their desperate gambit has worked. The quiet landscape provides a stark contrast to the dramatic events in the village. The villagers stare up at the watchtower, silent witnesses to the shocking turn of events. Misha, holding the elder hostage, calmly notes what a massive brawl it had become. Though the villagers outnumbered the mercenaries 3-1, the adventurers were winning. Solon looks up from the crowd, his face grim as he realizes he's been outmaneuvered. Misha watches, wondering why the powerful Tenma and Zuratan are being so passive. The pig-faced Ujio stands nervously as his brief reign of terror begins to crumble. From a window, the drunken village elder trembles with rage and confusion. He bellows from the watchtower, accusing his son Ujio of acting without authority. Tenma's eyes widen. He realizes Ujio's power was a complete fabrication. Ranga understands now that the chief never gave the order, clearing his path to act. Exposed as a fraud, Ujio collapses to the ground, squealing in utter terror. Tenma takes command, turning to address the hired mercenaries directly. He orders them to capture Ujio, turning them against their own employer. Tenma looks up in shock as his clever gambit is suddenly interrupted. The mercenary leader, Solon, appears in the watchtower, his expression cold. He barks a single sharp command to his men. Hurry! The mercenaries grab the flailing Ujio, ignoring Tenma's order completely. They begin to drag their former paymaster away in a chaotic retreat. Ranga growls, realizing they are attempting to flee with their pawn. As if I'd let you, Tenma vows, a small stone glowing with power in his hand. He unleashes a powerful shot, sending Ujio flying and a scroll tumbling to the ground. Ranga and Tenma rush to the downed Ujio, who whimpers in defeat. Zuratan stares in disbelief at the boy's impossible speed and destructive power. Ranga yells for Tenma to hurry and secure the captured Ujio. Solon leaps down from the wall, his sword drawn, blocking their path. Both Ranga and Tenma skid to a halt, stunned by his sudden appearance. He offers them a grim choice: submit to his authority or die right here. Ranga angrily asks if he would truly use a sword against unarmed people. Solon scoffs, saying he doesn't care what the onlooking villagers think. A foot kicks up dust as another mercenary makes a sudden move. Ranga tells Tenma that at the very least they must retrieve the document. Tenma's head whips around as he senses a new, immediate threat. Damn it, he thinks, realizing a blonde mercenary has slipped past him. The mercenary, a woman named Kekia, lunges for the fallen scroll. A cruel smirk crosses her face, certain the prize is hers. But just as she reaches it, the scroll is snatched from the ground. She skids to a halt, whirling around in angry surprise. She demands to know who dares to interfere with her. A silhouetted figure stands before her, clutching the scroll. It is Misha. Misha, though visibly trembling, holds the document with fierce determination. She declares that they will be the ones to protect this village. Kiki grits her teeth, enraged by the fox girl's defiance. You vixen! She snarls, lunging forward in a furious attack. Misha dodges and sprints away, holding the scroll aloft in triumph. Her feet kick up dust as she makes a desperate break for safety. She runs with all her might toward the open village gates. The villagers watch as she successfully escapes through the entrance. Ranga cheers her success as a stunned Salon can only stare. High in the watchtower, Ujio looks on in complete disbelief. Sasha and May celebrate from the window, hugging the recovering elder. Later that day, the core group gathers inside a small hut. Examining the scroll, Sasha confirms that it is an obvious forgery. She explains to Ranga that the handwriting is not the chief's. They sit around a lantern, piecing together the events of the coup. Zuritan clenches his fists, asking how things could have gotten so bad. He recounts how Ujio took over after the village elder vanished. The elder is shown in bed, slowly recovering from his ordeal. Zuritan continues, explaining the thugs arrived right after the takeover. The mercenaries, Sasha adds, came directly from the town of Ronda. Zuritan is shocked to learn their origin was the nearby town. Misha asks her sister-in-law Sasha about the elder's condition. Sasha reveals only half the elixir was needed, leaving plenty to spare. Zuritan is amazed that it was Misha who delivered the life-saving medicine. Ranga proudly explains the elixir was a treasure from Tenma's grandfather. Tenma can only offer a weak, sweaty smile at the fabricated story. Ranga dismisses Ujio's claims, certain the real chief is on their side. Zuritan voices his concern about the adventurers Ujio hired from Ronda. The group shares a look of grim understanding. The danger is not over. Tenma calmly strokes a small animal, considering a darker possibility. In a tavern, Solon holds a hand of cards, beginning to reveal his plan. He asks his men if that is truly what their employer wants. One of his men complains that he's been told this over and over. Solon casually suggests that if needed, they can just slaughter everyone. Ujio, thinking he's a partner, smugly places a bet on the table. He agrees, saying they are better employers than his stingy father. But Ujio begins to sweat, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. A mercenary notes that the village lacks the resources to be profitable. Solon laughs, revealing the true plan. Sell the settlement rights to slavers. Ujio's face contorts in horror as he realizes he's been completely duped. One of the mercenaries mocks Ujio for being an utter fool. Solon continues his explanation, laying down a winning card. He says that once the troublemakers are gone, everything will be settled. If anyone sees too much, he adds, the residents can simply disappear. He stands from the table, drawing a knife with a sinister look. He gestures to a framed portrait of the village's founder on the wall. Authority, he declares, is nothing more than a useful tool to be wielded. His cruel band of mercenaries grin in wicked agreement. Worlds away, in a quiet, stylish bar, two glasses clink together. Anna asks Director Hagen what he and the Orca god discussed. Hagen admits Tenma's actions are expected, but something feels too quiet. Anna agrees, finding it strange he isn't causing more of a stir. She wonders what she would do with his immense power and assets. She fantasizes about taking over her company with a massive minigun. Hagen smiles knowingly, asking why Tenma doesn't just go on a rampage. His expression turns serious as he prepares to explain. That is because, Anna-kun, he begins, his voice low. He explains that overwhelming power is like a miracle cure that's too strong. If Tenma were to rampage, how the world views him would forever change. Anna looks away, chastened by the truth in his words. You're right, she concedes quietly, sipping her wine. Hagen adds that an operation is meaningless if the patient dies. He compares the world to a patient and Tenma to the miracle cure. Anna listens intently, her eyes wide with understanding. The terrible weight of Tenma's burden finally settles upon her. A voice in the night questions if this means there is no power. Under the moon, they resolve to help the village chief escape that very night. It was a terrible decision, having to involve the innocent villagers in their flight. Tenma holds the last lantern, his young face grim as Zuritan stands guard. Ujio asks his new mercenaries if they know about the recent monster appearances. He cruelly informs them they'll be reported missing, devoured by wolves or goblins. Suddenly faced with armed men, Zuritan grips his axe, sensing an ambush. The mercenaries charge forward, one of them yelling for the others to wait. A mercenary screams a warning about strange techniques as he's struck in the head. Tenma smashes his lantern, instantly plunging the narrow pass into absolute darkness. Blinded, the men panic, questioning the sound and telling each other to hold steady. Two mercenaries are struck down, as another yells for his comrades to calm down. Their bodies hit the ground with a thud, their torches extinguished. A man lets out a terrified scream as he is dragged away into the black. Shamrock looks up in disbelief at the faint silhouette of Tenma standing above him. He seethes with rage, cursing the brat who has so thoroughly outmaneuvered him. Zuritan is impressed. Tenma's skill in fighting people is far beyond his expectations. He realizes now that Tenma was always holding back, using feints to hide his true power. From the shadows, Tenma calmly confirms that this is indeed the case. The swordswoman Kanaha watches, amazed by his overwhelming power that goes unseen by others. Shamrock and his bald subordinates share a grim, determined look. A massive, beast-like mercenary brandishes his enormous warhammer. The hooded poisoner clutches a small pouch, her expression tense. Ujio cowers on the ground, terrified by the escalating violence. The remaining mercenaries stare down Tenma's imposing, shadowed form. Ujio demands they attack, but the bald mercenary furiously tells him to be quiet. Shamrock concedes the boy is absurdly strong, but he has a plan. With a decisive tap, he empties the ashes from his smoking pipe. In one smooth motion, he draws his sword from its sheath. He takes a stance, his blade ready to face the darkness before him. He gives the order to his crew. They will proceed with the trick. In a coordinated rush, the mercenaries leap past their foes toward the villagers. Zuratan moves to intercept, declaring that he will be Shamrock's opponent. Shamrock grins, taunting that they've never lost with this tactic, not even to dragons. Zuratan is momentarily thrown off balance by the unexpected feint. Shamrock's true attack, a poisoned projectile, is unleashed from the chaos. He watches with satisfaction, certain that his attack has found its mark. He had used his poison fangs, but that was never the main attack. He is sure that the troublesome brat has finally collapsed from the poison. The ground beneath Tenma's feet cracks and splinters from an unseen force. With one hand, Tenma effortlessly stops the giant's hammer blow cold. The mercenaries can only stare, their faces masks of pure shock and disbelief. With a sharp snap of his fingers, Tenma unleashes his counterattack. The massive brute is sent flying backward as if hit by a cannonball. The sheer force of the invisible blow is devastating. Zuratan catches Shamrock's blade in his bare hand, calling out Tenma's name. Tenma stands over the fallen mercenary, as Ujio whimpers in the background. The bald mercenary is terrified, wondering what Tenma is, urging his comrades not to waver. Shamrock orders the poisoner to throw her fang, even if she misses. The woman hurls a massive, wicked-looking knife through the air. The blade sinks deep into Tenma's shoulder with a sickening thud. The poisoner cheers, believing she has landed a decisive, winning blow. Tenma simply looks down at the blade, a curious, escaping his lips. A system alert confirms his maxed-out poison resistance has nullified the attack. Without a trace of pain, he yanks the huge knife from his flesh. He casually informs the horrified mercenaries that the poison truly had no effect. He calmly wipes the blood from the blade he just pulled from his own body. He grins, declaring that enduring 15 straight years in the tutorial was worth it. The mercenaries are stunned, unable to believe the poison didn't work at all. Shamrock begins to sweat, realizing it's impossible to endure that. Tenma is a monster. Tenma looks on with a calm, almost bored expression, uttering another, The remaining mercenaries now face a single, seemingly invincible boy under the moon. Tenma calmly wipes a smear of blood from his cheek. Shamrock grits his teeth, his expression hardening with grim resolve. He gives his final, most desperate order, unleash the smoke. A mercenary crushes a small, dark pouch in her hands. Another mercenary quickly dons an intricate, full-face gas mask. The pouch is dropped, its deadly contents ready to be released. A villager falls, choking, as Zuratan stands his ground against the creeping fog. Tenma's eyes widen in alarm as he recognizes the approaching danger. Two mercenaries, now fully masked, stand ready within the swirling smoke. The poisoner holds up a new pouch, filled with the lethal substance. The mercenaries are confused by the sudden turn, but they know it's dangerous. Tenma claps his hands, a sharp sound piercing the growing chaos. He stares into the fog, realizing with dawning horror what it must be. Shamrock smirks from the smoke, acknowledging that Tenma has figured it out. A montage reveals the poison's creation, a complex brew of deadly components. This concoction is a dragon-slaying poison, powerful enough to fell the mightiest beasts. A villager collapses to the ground, his hand clutching at his throat. He glares at Ujio, accusing him of leaving them all to die. Ujio, feigning innocence, nervously asks what he's talking about. Panel is a fragment showing Zuratan and Tenma in motion. Shamrock boasts that his poison is a mix of pufferfish and cobra venom. He claims a single pinch can annihilate every living creature in the forest. Ujio grovels at the poisoner's feet, begging to be saved and offering all his money. She kicks him away with disgust, telling the noisy pig to shut up. Ujio weeps pathetically as Tenma and Zuratan look on with grim determination. Zuratan holds a cloth, realizing this is the worst-case scenario he had imagined. He quickly presses the cloth over his mouth and nose to filter the air. His hand holds the makeshift mask tightly against his face. He decides they must retreat immediately and plan their next move. He turns and yells for Tenma to get out of there as fast as he can. The poison overcomes him, and he collapses, screaming Tenma's name in a final warning. In a blur, Tenma snatches a vial from the poisoner's hand, shocking her. He leaps nimbly over the heads of the other mercenaries, shouting in defiance. Shamrock dismisses the act, certain that neutralizing this poison here is impossible. He grins maniacally, roaring that Tenma will die by their poison. A hand is seen forcing a substance into an unwilling mouth. A pinch of the deadly dragon-slaying poison is forced into Tenma's mouth. Tenma collapses, convulsing as the mercenaries stare, certain he has gone mad. Tenma's eye narrows, his focus absolute as he confronts the poison. His body is seized by violent convulsions, a silhouette of agony. An intense internal process begins, his system fighting the toxin. A mental display shows his poison tolerance dropping rapidly. His resistance plummets to a critical 5%. The gauge bottoms out at a dangerous 3%. He pants heavily, sweat pouring down his face, but he is alive. Zortan cries out, horrified by Tenma's incredible recklessness. The mercenaries watch, stunned that he is still standing. Tenma wipes his brow, admitting he honestly thought he would die. The surviving mercenaries, utterly terrified, turn and flee for their lives. They vanish into the forest, leaving their fallen comrades behind. Zordan and a small white wolf watch them retreat from the shadows. The beastman mutters Tenma's name, still in disbelief. A quiet wind blows through the now empty, blood-stained clearing. A hooded figure stands over one of the defeated mercenaries. Misha and Zuratan are shocked to see Tenma emerge from the woods. A sudden bright flash of light erupts in the darkness. The sound of a brutal impact echoes through the trees. Solan's female accomplice cries out as she's knocked to the ground. Solan calls her an idiot, certain they will now be caught. His eyes narrow with a cold and ruthless calculation. He tells his partner that she is nothing but a hindrance. He decides to cross the river, abandoning her to her fate. But she anticipates his betrayal, striking first with a hidden blade. Her poisoned dagger slashes his leg, drawing dark blood. Solan screams in pain as his leg buckles beneath him. Keek looks down on him, sneering that it's a real pity. She reveals the blade was poisoned and he will now be bait. With a dramatic leap, she plunges into the river to escape. Solan lies paralyzed, enraged at being used as a decoy. He grits his teeth, cursing the brat who caused his ruin. With sheer willpower, he forces himself up, using his sword as a crutch. He looks up to see the dark silhouette of Tenma watching him. Solan's heart pounds with terror, his face slick with sweat. Tenma moves with impossible speed, a blur across the ground. He leaps into the air, launching himself directly at Solan. In his hand is a small collection of sharp-edged stones. He unleashes a volley of pebbles like bullets from his fingertips. The stones shatter against the flat of Solan's sword. Tenma closes the distance, catching the sword's blade in his bare hand. Solan struggles, shocked by the boy's impossible strength. Tenma's hand bleeds as he acknowledges Solan's power. He surmises that Solan was born stronger than everyone else, but he accuses him of only using that strength to hurt others. With a final crushing grip, he shatters the steel blade. Solan, utterly defeated, smirks and tells Tenma to kill him. Tenma looks down at him, his expression cold and distant. He refuses to take his life, offering a different challenge instead. He tells Solan to live on, carrying the feelings of his victims. The sun rises over the mountains, casting its first light. Keek's boot steps onto the muddy bank of the river. She collapses onto the grass, exhausted but alive. She sits up, looking out over the quiet, empty field. A relieved smile spreads across her face as she whispers her success. Suddenly, her eyes widen in dawning, absolute horror. A lone, dark silhouette stands on the hill above her. It is the unmistakable shape of the swordswoman, Konoha. Keek lets out a small, choked gasp of pure terror. Her face twists in a final, blood-curdling scream of despair. In his pocket dimension, Gale wonders what Tenma is doing. It muses that Tenma's abilities are on a different level entirely. A whistling kettle snaps Gale out of its thoughts. It pours a fresh cup of coffee, contemplating the situation. It sighs that its troublesome little brother is probably crying now. Gale's eye narrows, its expression turning sharp and serious. It decides to prepare the next phase of the plan immediately. The village's trade, water, and fuel problems must be solved. Gale glances over at a shelf, its expression softening slightly. It thinks Tenma would be happier if he just left the village. At the agency, Anna urgently calls out to Director Hagen. She questions why Tenma doesn't just use his overwhelming power. Hagen explains that while Tenma is safe, his friends are not. Anna worries what would happen if his companions were taken hostage. Hagen is confident, stating Tenma has the power to protect them. But he asks what would happen if strangers were targeted instead. Anna is shocked, unable to believe such a cruel tactic would be used. Her mind flashes to the corrupt, pig-like managing director Hayes. Hagen explains that this is why Tenma is so cautious. He admits that he too is worried about the boy's fate. The scene shifts back to the forest, dark and quiet. A shivering Tenma is collapsed at the edge of a stream. He splashes cool, clear water on his face, gasping for air. He admits to himself that he really thought he was going to die. He worries that Gale is going to be angry with him. Leaning on a staff, he slowly pushes himself to his feet. He stands on a small hill looking up at the starry night sky. He remembers Sasha's words, her warning about the village. She had said the takeover plot started with men from Rhonda. He realizes he must go to Rhonda to face the true enemy. As he walks, a small shadow with glowing eyes darts nearby. He feels a sudden, sharp tug on the back of his cloak. A wave of exhaustion hits him, his entire body aching. He wonders why his leg suddenly hurts, looking down in confusion. His eyes widen in complete and utter shock. A tiny white wolf pup is gently licking a wound on his hand. A new chapter begins. An unexpected guest has arrived. The bright moon hangs high in the sky over the mountains. The small wolf now follows closely behind Tenma on the path. Tenma looks back, completely bewildered by his new, tiny companion. A small white wolf sinks its teeth into Tenma's arm, surprising him. He yells at the feisty creature to let go as it bites his leg. The wolf suddenly releases its grip, its mouth hanging open. It then collapses onto the ground, twitching once before going still. Tenma immediately kneels beside it, asking with concern what happened. His gloved hand gently rests on the unconscious pup's head. He decides to consult Gale, summoning the door to his private dimension. The door clicks open, revealing the familiar portal to his pocket space. But an invisible barrier stops his foot from crossing the threshold. A jolt of energy throws him back as he cries out in surprise. He stares at his hand, shocked and confused by the strange repulsion. Gale peeks out, asking what's wrong, as Tenma explains he can't enter. His AI companion identifies the pup as the cause, noting its poor condition. Tenma realizes the pup is poisoned and immediately begins to neutralize it. The small wolf's eyes flutter open as the detoxification takes effect. Now cured, the pup is full of energy, and Tenma smiles in relief. He confirms that detoxification is complete, identifying the pup as a silver wolf. A status screen alerts him that a servant contract is now in progress. He holds the pup, telling a surprised Gale it's becoming a servant. The wolf seems delighted by this development, panting with a happy expression. Tenma wonders how the creature came to be in a poisoned state. Gale repeats his words, shocked to hear about a deadly poison. As Gale panics, Tenma calmly explains he already detoxified himself. The AI companion continues to fret, its cartoonish form agitated. Tenma stands before the door, debriefing Gale on the recent events. Gale is appalled to learn that Ujio hired mercenaries to attack Tenma. Tenma confirms he fought them off, but Ujio betrayed his own father. Petting the pup, he says the monster and mercenary problems are now solved. Gale, however, lists the village's lingering issues of water and resource shortages. The AI navigator then points out that the most troublesome problem remains. It reveals that Ujio is in Rhonda, conspiring with a new mastermind. Tenma agrees, knowing he must go to the city to uncover the plot. The sleeping wolf lets out a tiny sigh in his arms. A steady rain begins to fall, blanketing the forest in a gray mist. Tenma stands in the downpour, holding the pup and looking at his door. Gale notes the late hour, and Tenma knows he must rejoin his friends. The small wolf sleeps peacefully, sheltered from the rain by Tenma. He holds the creature close, wondering what he should do with it now. Gale hums thoughtfully, pondering a solution to Tenma's dilemma. The AI realizes it's too risky to bring the weakened pup inside. With a determined look, Gale's expression shifts as it formulates a plan. Tenma looks up, noticing the sudden change in his companion's demeanor. Gale's face becomes stern, insisting that other matters must wait. The AI declares there is something it must confirm with him first. Tenma is taken aback by the sudden and unusual seriousness in Gale's tone. The rain continues to pour over the dark, rolling hills in the distance. Misha and Zuratan wait patiently for Tenma under the shelter of a tree. Misha gazes out at the rainy landscape, her expression clouded with worry. She wonders aloud if Tenma's all right, glancing at their tied-up captives. Zuratan calmly reassures her, confident in Tenma's ability to handle himself. He recalls their journey, knowing Tenma possesses a deep, hidden strength. Misha listens to him, though her worried expression remains unchanged. Zuratan clarifies that Tenma's true greatness isn't his combat prowess. Misha is surprised, wondering what the giant means by his cryptic words. He explains Tenma's strategic depth, which Gale mentally takes credit for. Zuratan continues, speaking of Tenma's empathy for everyone involved. Hearing this, Misha's worried frown softens into a gentle, trusting smile. Zuratan says Tenma's greatness isn't his strength, flashing to a battle scene. Instead, his true power is his kind and generous character. He places a reassuring hand on her shoulder, telling her not to worry. Misha looks up at the large man, her anxiety finally melting away. She thinks to herself that if Zuratan says so, it must be true. Misha approaches Zuratan, saying she has something she needs to discuss. The wise giant correctly guesses that she wishes to talk about Tenma. Misha's expression is earnest, wanting to understand their mysterious friend. The focus shifts from Misha's boots to Tenma's as he faces his own trial. He stands before the dimensional door, ready for his friend's questions. Gale asks him directly, what is their relationship from his perspective? Tenma's first thought is that Gale must be angry with him for something. Gale explains that it was asked about their bond and wants to know his answer. Tenma thoughtfully considers the question, pondering his connection to the AI. He starts by saying Gale is his navigator and also his partner. Gale listens patiently, prompting him to explain what that truly means. Tenma thinks of their dynamic, how it feels like they are family. Gale gets flustered, thinking Tenma is about to call it a father figure. Tenma considers it for a moment, but decides that's not quite right. He wonders if Master fits, but Gale impatiently asks for another option. He recalls their 15 years together and how Gale often lost its cool. Gale dismisses the memory, but Tenma can't help but laugh fondly. He realizes they are companions who can joke around and be themselves. Gale seems to understand the conclusion Tenma is about to reach. With a bright, heartfelt smile, Tenma declares that Gale is his brother. Gale ascends into a state of divine bliss, surrounded by angelic figures. The AI confirms their new status. It is the older, wiser brother. With their bond settled, Tenma asks what to do about the pup. Gale proposes a solution, using the powerful dimension area skill. It explains this pocket space, unlike the room, can be opened anywhere. Tenma understands, holding the pup close as he prepares to create a haven. He reassures the whimpering wolf that he will give it a safe place. He tells his brother to hurry and prepare the skill for activation. Looking at a map, he selects a grassy field with a sheltering cave. He taps a screen, confirming the location and completing the duplication. Pointing forward decisively, he activates the dimension area skill. The wooden door transforms into a heavy sealed vault door with a hiss. He notes that the door to this normal space is different from the room. Stepping out onto a sunny beach, he remarks on the pleasant weather. He releases the pup, which leaps from his arms with a happy yip. The little wolf dashes across the grass, running in joyful circles. It bounds happily towards Tenma, its fluffy tail wagging furiously. Tenma kneels down and names the silver wolf Sil, who yips in approval. Tenma gently offers the small white wolf a piece of meat to eat. The wolf happily gnaws on the treat, its tail wagging with pure delight. Tenma stares, utterly stunned by the overwhelming display of absolute cuteness before him. Overcome with emotion, he blushes, thinking he can't stop smiling at the cuteness. He remembers his duty, summoning a status screen as the curious wolf watches. He smiles, confirming that the wolf is now officially his servant, named Maru. He feels a gentle tug on his trousers as the small wolf looks up. With hopeful eyes and tongue out, the wolf eagerly asks for another treat. Tenma is once again overwhelmed, his reaction so intense the moment is cut short. A dramatic sound effect marks the transition to a more serious scene. Inside his pocket dimension, the atmosphere shifts to one of quiet contemplation. Tenma thanks Gale for helping him protect the wolf, who congratulates him back. Gale outlines the difficult tasks ahead, the village's problems, and Rhonda's mastermind. Tenma gratefully acknowledges that all his success so far is thanks to Gale. The dolphin mascot appears, surrounded by a happy flurry of blooming flowers. He asks Gale to be his guide and to let him rely on him as a brother. Flustered but pleased, Gale agrees, saying it can't be helped if he asks. Gale asks if he has the important item. Tenma confirms he would never forget. With a determined look, Tenma prepares to leave the dimension for his mission. An overhead view reveals the pioneer village, the stage for the coming conflict. In the pouring rain, Misha and Zuratan wait anxiously for Tenma's return. Nearby, the two captured mercenaries remain bound, awaiting their uncertain fate. Tenma stands resolute, his cloak whipping in the wind, ready for action. Misha watches him with a worried expression, a faint blush on her cheeks. She clenches her fist over her heart, steeling her resolve to speak up. She asks to join his journey, insisting she will be useful to him. Completely flustered, she rashly promises that she will do absolutely anything for him. Her mind races, horrified at the implications of what anything could possibly mean. She briefly imagines his imposing silhouette, her thoughts spiraling out of control. Her thoughts dissolve into a hazy, sparkling, and deeply embarrassing romantic fantasy. The strange, sparkly vision continues to build in her overactive imagination. Her wild fantasy involves lingerie, a catgirl maid, and other suggestive scenarios. She mentally screams at her own brain, desperate for the embarrassing thoughts to stop. Snapping back to reality, she sees his feet planted firmly on the ground. Zortan sighs, reassuring her that Tenma would never think of such weird things. She muses that even without practice, things will hopefully work out if she asks. Her attention shifts to the two bound mercenaries, sitting defeated under a tree. The mercenaries are terrified, one pleading with Zortan to help them once more. Tenma suddenly appears and the mercenaries shriek his name in absolute terror. Tenma glances over at the terrified men, his expression calm and unreadable. Zortan greets him, relieved he is safe, and asks about the other adventurers. He taught them a lesson, he explains, and they will never return again. Zortan listens, letting out a quiet grunt of understanding and perhaps approval. Tenma declares his intent to go to Rhonda to unmask the adventurer's mastermind. Zortan closes his eyes, his expression one of deep concern for Tenma's plan. No, he insists, they should return to the safety of the village first. He worries Tenma is still hurt, and the true mastermind's identity is unknown. Tenma looks down, a bead of sweat on his face, considering this logic. He stands silently before his two companions, the decision weighing heavily upon him. He recalls Gale's advice. A swift attack is best before they are identified. He is suddenly distracted by Misha's presence, looking up at her with surprise. Misha passionately repeats her offer to do anything if he takes her along. He simply agrees with a smile, which catches the surprised Misha off guard. He clarifies she can join anytime, but only after this current matter is resolved. She argues that she must go now, as it concerns her home village. A sharp sound effect emphasizes the moment he acknowledges her point is valid. Suddenly, the two mercenaries begin to convulse violently, poisoned from within. Zortan cries out in alarm, shocked by the sudden and gruesome turn of events. Tenma and Misha immediately rush to the side of the two collapsing men. He tells Zortan to calm down and uses his appraisal skill to investigate. His eyes widen in shock as he identifies a deadly, delayed-action poison. He quickly neutralizes the toxin, announcing that their lives are no longer in danger. Zortan offers his sincere thanks to Tenma for saving the men's lives. A simple grave marks the final resting place of the mercenary who died. The three companions stand silently before the grave, paying their somber respects. Tenma realizes this grim outcome was part of Gale's predicted Pattern G. He thinks grimly that he cannot believe the mastermind would go this far. He clenches his fist, his mind racing as he processes the enemy's ruthlessness. He understands the system. Failures are eliminated by a poison they never knew existed. Misha and Zoratan look on as she calls out to the distracted Tenma. The situation has changed, he announces. They must return to the pioneer village. Zoratan and Misha listen intently, their expressions grim and focused. 2 weeks later, life in the pioneer village has settled into a new normal. Tenma finds a moment of peace, happily scratching his fluffy companion's belly. He crouches down, telling the little wolf that he is truly very cute. Overjoyed by the attention, Maru leaps into the air with a happy yip. He continues to play with the adorable wolf, lost in the joyful moment. The energetic wolf jumps up again, its paws outstretched in playful excitement. A sudden flash of insight breaks his reverie. His senses are on high alert. A mental alarm flashes, warning him of an approaching armed group. From a watchtower, he scans the horizon, trying to identify the presence. Through his binoculars, he sees Ranga leading a patrol of cheerful villagers. Relieved, he hands over watch duty to the next villager, his shift now over. Ranga and another villager patrol the village path, with Maru trotting along. Misha asks Ranga if the traps are set. He confirms they are perfect. Maru trots along proudly, sporting a brand new collar around its fluffy neck. Ranga comments on how well the collar suits Maru, and Tenma agrees. Ranga proudly states that the collar is a perfect fit for Tenma's servant. Tenma reflects on how the mercenaries completely failed in their attempt to take over. Ranga hopes the mastermind behind Ujio has finally given up on the village. Tenma can only offer a gentle smile, agreeing that would indeed be nice. Night falls over the village, the barn quiet under a sky full of stars. Inside the barn, Tenma studies a map while Maru plays with other animals. He meticulously writes in his journal, the script a language from his homeland. Zoratan enters the dimly lit barn, calling out to find Tenma at his desk. Tenma smiles and offers Zoratan a drink from a bottle, thanking him politely. Zoratan asks about the strange script, wondering if it is from Tenma's homeland. Tenma explains that since Japanese doesn't exist here, no one can read it. He asks if Ujio ever spoke the name of the mastermind behind him. A flashback shows the defiant mercenaries demanding alcohol, refusing to talk. In a quiet room, Tenma and Zoratan share wine, acknowledging their foe's predictable nature. Tenma gets to the point, proposing they team up with Ujio against the mastermind. Zoratan takes a long, thoughtful sip of wine, considering the dangerous proposal. Tenma reminds him that Ranga, for one, had certainly not given up hope. Zorotan reveals their enemy had the 6 adventurers he hired drink poison beforehand. Tenma now has a clear picture. Their foe is greedy, meticulous, and wicked. A shadow falls across Zorotan's face as he listens to Tenma's assessment. Tenma confidently states their enemy will absolutely return to investigate his plan's failure. A bead of sweat rolls down Zorotan's temple as the plan's weight settles in. He closes his eyes for a moment, steeling his resolve for the coming fight. Near the strategist, a pile of small white wolf pups sleeps peacefully. Far away at the agency, a strange black symbiotic creature slumbers on the floor. Administrator Anna sighs, lamenting that her grueling late-night shift seems to have no end. A digital clock suddenly flashes, announcing that the day has officially changed. She lets out another long sigh, utterly exhausted by her endless stream of work. She complains that recent reincarnation candidates make ridiculously detailed requests for cheat abilities. Desperate to stay awake, Anna quickly chugs another small bottle of energy drink. Leaning back, she reflects that Tenma was refreshingly straightforward, even if he was odd. A sudden flicker of professional concern crosses her face as she thinks. She admits she finds it hard to accept him just settling down so quietly. Looking at the candidate files, she briefly wonders what she would wish for. She imagines the utter chaos caused by the other candidates' absurd requests. The result would be a lewd and invincible situation, she thinks with horror. In a tent, Shamrock notes their 6 skilled adventurers were completely and overwhelmingly defeated. Despite this catastrophic failure, the mastermind Shamrock maintains a pleasant, almost cheerful smile. His subordinate stands by, waiting for his leader's assessment of the situation. One of the mercenaries stares at his wine, muttering in disbelief at their loss. Another mercenary sits silently with her arms crossed, contemplating their utter failure. Shamrock asks what that fool's name was, remembering it was Ujio, not Shamrock. A nervous Ujio timidly approaches the mastermind, addressing him as Lord Shamrock. Shamrock's glasses flash as he pointedly asks why Ujio is so fixated on that village. He laughs and snaps his fingers, declaring it the best question of the day. Raising a single finger, he begins to explain the true nature of his ambitions. He explains that taking the village now would yield little profit on its own. But if the nearby town of Ronda grows, the profits will be truly immense. This village is merely the first step. Even failure has its value. A subordinate respectfully calls him Lord Shamrock, offering to pour more wine. A flicker of doubt enters Shamrock's mind, a single unspoken word. However, he ponders how the foolish Ujio could possibly have such a skilled subordinate. He wonders if there is someone in that village they don't know about. His subordinate continues to pour wine, oblivious to his master's deep thoughts. The subordinate glances over, a hint of concern on his face. He is then completely startled by the sudden, bizarre change in Shamrock's expression. Shamrock's face breaks into a wide, sparkling smile of pure, unadulterated delight. Back in the pocket dimension, a voice acknowledges the new information with understanding. The dolphin AI Gale crosses its fins, declaring the situation very interesting. It turns to Tenma and asks him what he wants to do now. Tenma says Gale might object, but this situation is different for him. The villagers are benefactors to his brother, and therefore, they are his benefactors too. Overjoyed, Tenma gently lifts Gale, thanking him for his unwavering support. Gale agrees to explain its plan, warning Tenma to trust and obey. Tenma's gaze is firm as he agrees, asking what his first move should be.